Welcome, everyone, to another edition of ComicCorp. Parlaying with the last 3 nights of my internet, we do have some slight internet worries for me. I've been having slowdown for whatever reason. AT&T is just being all kinds of dicks tonight. That was the same problem as last night, same problem as Tuesday, same problem as Monday, so I don't know what's going on. But we are going to do our best to provide you with the best review of The Boys possible. I'm your host, as always, Chad Porto. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how the hell are you?
I'm good. This is gonna be a fun one. I mean, normally me and Chad always try to deliver, but tonight we'll try to put some extra sauce on it for you because we are absolutely giddy about this phenomenon in our mind called The Boys.
I don't even want to undershoot how good this was, but y'all are missing out. Honestly, if you haven't seen the show yet.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, that's what. The only thing that made me smile more or as much was something I found on YouTube that I shared with Chad that we may have time to get into later. May.
Oh, we'll make time for that. Like, that's on the docket. That and the Rango review are definitely going to be reviewed tonight. Okay, so audio seems to be good. So I think we're ready to start off with this. I sent Marcus the photo of the logo on the screen for tonight. His reaction was fucking priceless.
The only person that I match him with in terms of like a facial expression battle is our boy Babino. But that's about it.
All right, so now we're good. I had to turn off the mobile device in which I was checking the audio on. So I can actually see the audio levels, but with the internet, I just wanted to double check. So we're going to go so far deep into this, you're going to call us porn stars because we are taking this deeper than you ever thought possible. Usually our reviews are like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. What's your favorite scenes? Yeah, all right, cool. End of show.
You're gonna. I was gonna say you're gonna have to rename us the Deep, but that could go so totally in a direction we don't deal with.
Oh, but we're going to tonight. I never thought gill banging was a thing, but here we are. So we are going to hit every episode by episode, but what I want to do before we do anything is talk about the characters because I think the characters will better inform the episodes, and then we'll get into the trash reviews that came out about this show. And I broke them down not only on Twitter, but I even wrote up an article reviewing the reviews. It might be my new favorite thing I've ever done. Not gonna lie. Trashing other people's dumb opinions. I like that. That was fun. So the show stars, and actually I think he's arguably the biggest name on the show, Carl Urban. He's obviously... there was no one else on the show besides the guy who played... But see here, even saying that just proves the fact that Carl Urban's probably the biggest name on the show. I was thinking the guy who plays on Breaking Bad, he was the rival meth dealer who owned like all the Chicken Pollo restaurants. Forget his name. But he debuted at the end of the season this year for the Boys as the head of the company. But even then, like, I don't remember his name, so clearly he's not bigger than Carl Urban.
I guess the guy that ranks under him would be, Peg, but he didn't really have a pivotal role, but he is a name.
Yeah, you're right. But that right there kind of shows you just how right we both are because I forgot Peg was even in the show when I was talking about it.
Yeah.
Peg's only in 3 or 4 episodes, and he talks in a really weird English accent. American accent, I'm sorry.
It's funny because I watched somebody else review, and they was like, I feel like he shot all his scenes in a day.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't exactly, which I'm like, yeah, he probably did.
Like, you just imagine that he was, like, on tour of Universal Studios of Los Angeles, and she's like, oh, what's in here? Hey, here's Simon Pegg. You want to shoot some scenes for us? All right. Can you do an American accent? Not really. All right, cool. Try your best. Cool. Bam, 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 bam. Done. Oh, cool. How much am I going to get paid? That's a lot of zeros for 20 minutes of work. Oh, go. You guys have fun. Like, I feel like that's all it was. So each one of these characters is shockingly deeper than I ever thought possible. And there's only 8 episodes. They're about an hour long. And I've mentioned him before. His name's Gary Beekler. He does the Nerdrotic podcast on YouTube, and he runs the Nerdrotic website. And I've said before that, I've talked about his stuff, and he kind of swings more into the anti-SJW crowd. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, hey, Star Trek, you're fucking dumbasses. And it's nice to hear. And he puts over the Orville all the time. So he's like Marcus and I. Only a lot more. Like he's what we would be like when we're 50. If we keep going down this path. Like, you can tell we're both going to be a little bit more when we get like to 50. So he put over the show basically saying that it was a 8-hour movie. I was like, whatever. And then I watched him like, yeah, this is an 8-hour movie. And it's the perfect companion piece for modern day comic books. Like it blends so well with what we're getting from the Arrowverse and Marvel and all this other stuff because it's radically different but still in tone. It was originally created by a man named, I think it was Gary Ellis or Tom Ellis. I think it was Tom Ellis. Let me just double check this. Eric Kripke was the one who brought it to life. Warren Ellis. I didn't even find the name, and I remembered it was Warren Ellis. And it wasn't. It was Garth Ennis. God damn it, Chad. I'm so dumb. So Garth Ennis created the book as kind of a shot at superhero comics. Back in, I think it was like 2006, maybe even earlier than that, 2002. And, it was met with some mixed reviews. It was on Wildstorm when Wildstorm was still a thing, and then it moved over to, let me double check what it was, because I had never heard of the company before. Dynamite. It moved over to Dynamite. Actually, I know Dynamite. It went from 2006 to 2012, created by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson, ran for 72 issues. And a lot of the names of the episodes were pulled from the arcs of the series, even though the first season of The Boys was radically different from the comics. And I'd wanted to get through the comic as well before today, but I didn't get a chance to do so. So I'm coming in here just like most people, unaware of what the content was in The Boys comics. And I will say this, there was 2 negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes I saw that basically just said it was too far away from the comics for them to like it. That's a fair criticism. It's not one I agree with, but at least it has basis in an opinion that has substance. You wanted a source material accurate creation. It wasn't, so it disappointed you. Fair enough. I get that. So, Marcus, let's talk about the characters to start. We'll talk about the boys first and foremost. So we have Carl Urban's Billy Butcher. We get introduced to him, and he's basically telling young Huey that he is a member of the FBI. And then it's alluded that he might be a member of the CIA. But then it's alluded that he doesn't actually have any affiliations anymore, and he's just kind of a psychopath. Yeah. Billy is... And we don't really know what his deal was before everything. He just seemed like a regular dude, I guess, for all intents and purposes. But he was married to a woman who was played by our own Patty Spivot. Yay!
Love Chantel Van Satin.
When I saw her, I'm like, it's Patty Spivot. This is going to end badly. In the comics, the character that Patty Spivot plays, what was her name? Becca Butcher?
Yeah, Rebecca, but yeah.
Becca Butcher. Let me just see if I can find it real fast, because I don't want to fuck this up. Becca Butcher. So Becca is in the comics, so full disclosure, spoilers, trigger warnings if you're going to be that kind of person. You didn't give me a trigger warning. Dude, this show's a trigger warning. This show is nothing but a trigger warning.
Yeah, I knew I was getting into something different when they put the viewer's question device and all the rating things were listed.
Yeah,
like,
it was.
Holy shit.
Well, I've seen that before. Yeah, like nudity, graphic violence, strong language, and then I see rape. I'm like, huh? What are we walking into? And then, like, first 5 minutes, liquidation. I'm like, what the Marcus? What the fuck?
Yeah, I was like, it was funny too. I was like, watching this. I'm like, I know Chad, but I don't. It's scaring me a little bit. I don't know how he's gonna take this. And of course, like mine. So.
I think I just sent you a text saying like, the rape and some chick gets liquid. Yeah. What the fuck?
he just told like after the first episode, what in the fuck did I just
It
watch?
wasn't even that. It was 12 minutes. Like 12 minutes in, I'm like, Marcus, what the fuck am I watching? And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, just wait until you meet Homelander. I'm
Now,
like, oh,
now,
good God.
now this is two. Yeah, I warned him. Now these are two people coming off of a near sex scene between a roach and a rat.
What do you mean
Allegedly.
near? I'm pretty sure there was penetration. Yeah, but I hear you. Like, we went from that to this, and, like, I thought we were taking a step back in terms of, like, okay, but turns out it's more of a lateral movement. Okay. So, this fucking show, man. So, I'm so giddy. In the comics, Billy's wife, Becca, is raped by Homelander. And she becomes pregnant with his baby, and the baby literally lasers its way out of the womb, killing her, and then starts to fly instantaneously. And Billy kills the baby in a most graphic scene, I'm told, in the series, or one of. And that's his catalyst in the comics to start doing what they're doing. I've also been told and heard through other sources that essentially what we saw in the first few episodes with him getting the gang back together is actually a story arc in the comics where he has to get everyone back together. But they incorporated that angle and the introduction to Huey as the debut arc, if you will, of the TV show. So there are some slight differences, and I think that's kind of cool. Because while I do appreciate shot-for-shot remakes and shot-for-shot adaptations, I also like seeing something new. And the thing is, with Eric Kripke, he created Supernatural, and I love that show, and I love his work, so I'm on board with whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's a unique line because just hearing some of the stuff that went on in the comics, I was like, it's one of them things where you watch something epic as a film and then you get the deleted scenes and you was like, that would have been cool, but I get why they left it out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like some of that stuff would have been overkill in a way that just wasn't necessary. Like sometimes doing it once gets the point across as opposed to doing it 5 times. Like, oh God, this happened. Yeah, but what if we put the whole group in this sex scene? Like it's not necessary. And I don't always get people who want that.
Yeah, Marcus is alluding to, I don't know if you're alluding to something specific that you know of, but you are, even if you don't.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. I was going to say, because if you don't, that's fucking, I'm impressed. There's an opening scene where a character gets essentially, and it's not technically rape, because she does do it of her own volition, but she also is coerced into it against her will, so it's technically sexual assault. I just want to be clear with the legality of it. It's still a sexual assault crime, don't get me wrong. It's still illegal. But it's not what you're expecting, but in the comics, she actually does get raped. Not just by one, but by like 4 of the crew. That they're, what are they called?
The 7.
In the 7. She gets raped by 4 of the 7. That just sounds like bad math. That's horrible. And another big change was Huey's motivation was the death of his beautiful girlfriend. And I actually prefer how they did this on TV compared to both the comics because I feel it was more organic. As we mentioned before, she was kind of more coerced against her will to do something she didn't want to do. That plays a lot better because that's a lot more of a realistic thing that you see in everyday life, as opposed to a gang rape in a conference room.
Yeah, Well, I think that happened to Starlight. You're talking about
right.
girlfriend.
I'm correlating 2 scenes together. That's the Starlight scene. The girlfriend scene in the comic was what was the speedster's name?
A-Train.
A-Train. I don't know if A-Train was, because they did a race swap, so I don't know if A-Train was the name of the guy in the comic. But the character in the comic, who's based off of A-Train, was fighting a supervillain, and he threw the villain through Huey's girlfriend. Similar scene, but a completely different context. It was more of a what's the word I'm looking for? Where there's unintended casualties. I forget the word for it. But
collateral damage.
Collateral damage. Thank you. She's more of a collateral damage incident than anything else. But in the show, I like that they did where he was an addict and he ran through her because he wasn't paying attention because of how high he was. That's drinking and driving brought to real life, and that's a lot more relatable. So what happened to Starlight, what happened to Huey's girlfriends, goes from the extreme shock value of the comic to a lot more realistic and a lot more relatable in the show. So I do like that Eric Kripke made those changes because it feels more authentic that way, as gruesome as they were.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, sometimes, like I said, it's the fact, and with his personality in the show, that wouldn't have landed the same way that did because of his attitude towards everything. Like, he's the one that's, I think he might be the youngest in the group,
easily,
maybe next to Starlight. And he's very much into social media. His image is his thing, as all of they are, but specifically with him and his arrogance that correlated with it. So the way that it went down, because he was not being a hero when he did what happened in the show. So, he was just being careless. So,
and that's what makes A-Train such a compelling character, is because you can tell that he's so conflicted by so many things, but he's so strung out that he's just making himself look worse and worse and worse. So let's hit this in order that Wikipedia lists them. Let's talk Billy Butcher. Billy is angry, narcissistic, argumentative, and borderline barbaric in his brutality. But he's also, in a lot of ways, trying to find a way to cope and help others cope as well. There's a lot of honest integrity in Billy Butcher, and you don't always see it. Because a lot of times, his interactions with guys like Huey and the Frenchman can be viewed as manipulation. But in episode 7, I think it was what it was, or the start of episode 8, he makes a blatant decision for the sake of one member, which is MM, Mother's Milk, which is the most ridiculous name I've ever heard in my life. And you can tell he genuinely cares about his crew. Save for the woman. Or the lady, whatever they're calling her. I forget her name. I think it's like Kamiko or something like that. But the other three, he actually has strong feelings for, and he wants them to do well and succeed and survive and thrive and heal. And a lot of times that's in constant conflict with his actual belief that, what do they call them, soups? The heroes?
You talking about, soups, yeah.
Soups. He hates soups, and he will never do anything to help them. And when Huey starts to develop romantic feelings for Starlight, Billy believes that keeping him away from her is the right thing, and that's how to protect him. He's warped by his hatred, but there's still compassion in that hatred, and I think that's a very remarkable thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, this show, two characters specifically, really balanced the scales, and Billy Butcher, Carl Urban's Billy Butcher's one of them, and Carl Urban, we could sing the man praises for as long as we're going to talk about this show. But, a lot of the show just won't work without him. I think he did brilliant with that character, taking through so many emotions, even though if it felt like he was just coming off with, one and very, it's very one-track minded about things. But it's his conviction about that thing that really steers. And I think, when you talk about what he did for Huey's character, it's because there's a relatability there. And because I think that scene that you talked about, the decision he made, he very much, it almost comes out like that Big Brother, Little Brother vibe. And the relatability of this thing that I have such a hatred for, deliberately took something that mattered more than anything else in this world to us. It took it from us. So how could you even dare do something that would jeopardize potentially having any type of get back in a world where this stuff happens at the on a piss of a whim and nothing gets done about it? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you this, and I'm bringing you in, and really to my own detriment, because them really affiliating with Huey to a point kind of put them in a way, because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's fresh, he's new, he's naive as hell, and he technically doesn't have any skills that they need immediately. Obviously, we found that out later that wasn't true. But, I think there's a kinship there, specifically when they were sitting on that bench, which I think is one of the best scenes of the season. That really just, was a call to action. I didn't see that scene coming, and when they did it, what he did to a certain character to save him, I was like, but I got it because it was finna go a different way. So.
Oh, you're talking about in I think it was episode 7 when for some I don't know how he did it, where Billy brought a 50 caliber sniper rifle into the middle of a park.
Yeah, in the middle of a freaking park, man. I'm like, what the freak? Like, he shot the shit out of her. Like, he shot the shit out of her. Like, she was going down one way or the other.
I just no would not see that. So speaking of kinship, Billy recruits Huey in the first episode, basically saying, "If you want revenge, I can help you get it."
Yep.
And all this because, and here's the thing with Huey. Huey starts the show by losing his girlfriend, and it's the most traumatic scene, before episode 4, that I have ever seen in my life. Because his girlfriend is this precocious little prickly, but overall sweetie kind of girl, and she's like, Huey, you're awesome, but you got to be a little bit more assertive at work. Ask for a raise. It's not a big deal. It's fine. And she's like, I love you, and do you want to move in with me? And Huey's like, yeah, I want to move in with you. And then all of a sudden, everything just kind of stops, and you see blood splash on Huey's face, and then you see like everything comes back to full motion, and you see Huey holding something, and A-Train is now covered in red viscous liquid, and he's looking around saying, I'm sorry, I can't stop. And he keeps running. And then you look down, and Huey's holding the hands of his girlfriend, the only physical part of her that's still intact, and they're twitching and spurting blood. And Huey just freaks out, and I don't know how he ever recovered from that, because I'd still be on that street corner just trying my best to put her back together. Like, you can't shower
that off enough.
No. Like, you will never, like, it happens in a literal blink. I think they even timed it for when he blinked, because you don't actually see it happen. Like, you're just gone in a flash of an instant. And because of that, he thinks that he's going to get recompense, and he's going to, the guy's going to admit wrongdoing, and he's going to, and then when nothing happens to A-Train, and they brush it off as an accident, saying that she was in the middle of the street and he was in pursuit of a criminal, and Huey realizes that she was a foot off of the curb. You're lying about that. And that starts to motivate his rage. He goes from being in mourning to being vengeful, all because they didn't take the proper steps needed to take culpability into their hands. And that sets Huey off on this trajectory to join the Butcher on his conquest to destroy Soups. Along the way, Huey does find the ability to love again, and we'll get through all that, and it's fantastic. Then we have Anthony Starr. Jack Quaid played Huey. Jack Quaid is not related to Randy Quaid, to the best of my knowledge. I've never actually seen him in anything. I don't know about you.
No.
So I actually thought he was a completely different actor when I saw him. Like, oh, that's that nerd with the big hair and the glasses in that one movie show thing. It wasn't. So Anthony Starr, it probably gets the most rave reviews, and he plays Homelander, who only has a first name, and it's John. His whole character arc is probably the most traumatic and stressful, because everything that he's about is revealed in episode 7, I think, or 8, to be a mistake. Like, we did you wrong, kid. I'm sorry. And that doesn't help a dude who thinks he's a god. You kidding? He is egotistical. He is borderline sociopathic. Although I do believe he knows what he's doing is wrong. He just doesn't see any other way, so he's fine with it. He doesn't like being told what to do, and this version of the character has the most extreme mommy issues I think I've ever seen. Like, goddamn. Holy hell. Man. There's a deleted scene that Eric Kripke said that they filmed it too, Marcus. They filmed this shit. Where he's on the corner of a building, and he's whacking it. And he's basically saying, you can't tell me what to do. Talking about rainfall, man.
I'm just like, wait a minute. I'm like, and somebody pointed this out, and ironically enough, it's no, but a woman pointed this out. It was like, it's funny how they, just how we all as a society, we basically just numb to all this grotesque and almost overseen visuals of violence, but implied masturbation, because they're not showing that, they're not going to show a dick. They're not going to show the fluid. It's going to be implied.
Well, we did see some dicks, so I don't even know if that's true.
Well, yeah, damn. Yeah, we did get it. Yeah. But I think in that scene, it'll be, in my mind, that scene happens. They might do a shot of him from behind.
Or like from over the
see
shoulder, and you just see his arm moving. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, but you're gonna do but like you said, they do the thing with the girlfriend in the arms, and we're going to get into a certain face explosion that happened.
Certain fish
later.
fetish.
Yeah, certain fish.
That took you a second, but you landed.
Gill rape. We had gill rape. It's just certain things. It's like, but you left that out. I'm like, you know how pivotal something like that is for that character? That's not gratuitous for gratuitous sake. And I tweeted it when I retweeted the thing, because shout out to Twitter for the retweet with comment added feature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a perfect encapsulation of that character's narcissism and his petulance at the same time, because that's something you would only get done from a child, which he is. Because when you get his backstory, but also he's so narcissistic. Of course, he would stand literally on top of the world, looking down on people because he thinks he's better than all of them, and proceed to cover them in his screw you fluid. Like, that's of course Homelander would do that, but that's boundaries and lines. I guess that was the final straw that they was like, you know what. You're thinking about this too much. We get it. Like, stop. That's enough.
And there's even a great parallel, because the first time, and we're about to talk about her, Starlight joins the crew. The first thing, and this is the first time we see Homelander. The first time he talks, he goes, "Guys, you're talking about money and movies and shit. Like, that's not what we're about. What I want to hear about is who you saved today." And he says that with Starlight's first meeting, to kind of put over how wholesome he is in front of the new girl. And you think that's who he's going to be. And then you know that he's not, because he's spying on his boss, and we'll get to episode 4.
Which the way that he spies is almost as creepy as anything they did in the show that was sexual related.
Yep. Because he's staring through a photo of himself.
And when you first see it, you're like, wait a minute, he's dead now. Oh, but at the same time, I also think sometimes he's done that just to look at himself, because he sees himself a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But he knows that's not. He sees himself a certain way. The world sees him another way, but he operates a completely different way. So in my mind, sometimes I think he really does just stop by that photo to look at himself. But then you see that he's freaking X-ray visioning. And it's a whole thing. I don't think this guy, this Anthony Starr, a lot of people, I guess, would be familiar with him from a show named Banshee, which I've heard a lot of good things about. But I don't think this guy will get enough praise and mention for just how many dimensions he brought to that character, which could have been very one-dimensional the whole damn 8 episodes.
Yeah. He was likable. He was offensive. He was right. He was wrong. Like, they went over like every aspect of him. I don't think he was empathetic, but you could definitely have some empathy for him, especially in episode 7 when you find out more about his backstory and you're like, God damn. But he's so unlikable that I feel like it wasn't strong enough. And if there was one criticism about him as a character, it was that they didn't go, because when you're trying to create a villain, an antagonist with a soft side or a relatable side, you have to remember that the scales need to be balanced. The pendulum needs to swing as to the one side as to the other as far as it would go. So you can't just go a 10 on the narcissism and destruction and a 5 on the empathy. Like, you gotta do more than, oh, he was just a test tube kind of kid. Oh, he was taken away from his mom. Oh, how many of these superheroes were those? So like, I feel like they didn't do enough to backload the reasons to be empathetic about him. Like he didn't show really any tears when he was being told this. He wasn't really that emotionally distraught. He was more angry, and that kind of feeds more into him being just a pure antagonist. Not to say it wasn't still riveting, But if you were trying to make him relatable and empathetic as a villain, you didn't do enough, in my opinion.
And this is credit to the actor. He sold all those emotions.
Oh yeah.
But he sold it in a way because by the time he got the information about that, it was too late. He was too far gone. Like because the actor that told it to him had played Anthony Falcone in Gotham, and that line he said to him, he was like a dog that gets raised without his mother is like grows up to be feral or something.
Mm-hmm.
Something, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like I should have put you with a good family so you could have some tender loving care, but now you're just you're just this weapon to be aimed at whatever you choose. So it's crazy. And I thought he was gonna kill him, and maybe he did. We don't know because he visited him a second time.
I'm going to actually go out on a limb and say that he didn't. And here's why I think that, Marcus. Actually, never mind. I was going to say because the doctor was honest with him, but then I realized, wait, he wasn't. They lied to him. So, yeah, he's probably dead.
Yeah.
Never mind, he's probably dead.
Yeah, the only thing that's left on that property is them damn dogs.
Hopefully. I hope he didn't kill the dogs.
By the way, somebody put this on Twitter. Somebody was like, wait a minute. Because they did a side-by-side. They're like, is this the state that Billy Madison movie was filmed on? Because of that water.
I mean, it might be.
And that big auto, yeah. So that was cool. But yeah, Anthony Starr really did something just phenomenal with his character. And to your point about the levels of bringing up that emotion and that empathy, I think that's gonna come with the revelation, obviously, of this second season. With that cliffhanger in the first, because he finally has something he can call his own that doesn't have any prior or rooted notion to be dishonest with him, because that was a real stickler for him this season that we're going to get off into, because everything that was possibly close to him, maybe outside of, with the exception of Maeve, kind of, their honesty with him was selfishly motivated. So, yeah.
So we go to Starlight, who was brought in as a replacement to, what was his name? Lightbringer? Firebringer?
Torchbearer.
Torchbearer.
Yeah.
Good. You knew where I was at. And Torchbearer was killed before the series by the boys, before they broke up.
Lamplighter.
Lamplighter. Lamplighter was the catalyst for the breakup of the boys in the first place. And Starlight came in to replace him. And first 10 minutes of her debut, if you will, she ends up meeting the Deep, who is an Aquaman stand-in, if you will. He's a deep sea swimmer with some speed and quickness under the water, but he's basically just an Aquaman allegory. And he basically says, I'm the number 2 to Homelander. So if you want to be in the group, you gotta put out, essentially. So she does, makes her sick, because it's such a grotesque force of will that, and it makes her upset. She goes and throws up, and that's where you meet Queen Maeve. And ironically enough, that's also where you meet, I don't even remember his name, the Invisible Man. Let me double check. It is Translucent. And that was
creepy bathroom bandit.
and Translucence can make his skin into a metallic object that reflects light, making it appear that he's invisible. But the funny thing is they call him on his stupid name, which was hilarious. But she eventually falls for a Huey. And the thing is with Starlight is she, unlike everyone else in this group, still has a desire to do right. She doesn't want to wear skimpy outfits. She doesn't want to make movies and do stand-in footage. She doesn't want to, fall in line. She wants to be a hero, and that's why she joined the Seven. That's why she wanted to join the Seven. And it's all she wanted. And they did a great kind of parallel with the idea of sports parents, dance moms, pageant moms, with Starlight, whose name in the show is Annie January, which is the most wholesome name ever. And her mother's is essentially using her religion, her daughter, and her daughter's fame to elevate herself. And she even says at one point to her daughter, her daughter says, "This isn't about you," and her mom says, "Isn't it?" And I was just like, Dad is cold. Like, I saw a girl get eviscerated by a speedster, and you saying "isn't it" is still the most fucked up thing in this show. So you see that she, as a daughter, has been manipulated and experimented on by her mother and the allowances of her mother and others around her mother. So her mother is just a terrible human being. And she grows up without a dad, and the most heartbreaking thing about this entire fucking series was she looks at her mother and goes, "Maybe my dad just couldn't stand the fact that you were lying to me, and that's why he left." And I'm like, ooh! Buster Douglas in the house. Tyson goes down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was sad. I mean, because she got hit with two really different hard realities. The only two things she's ever really looked up to in her life turned out to be like probably the shittiest examples of the perception in which she had of him. One, the nature of being a real hero in this world that she lives in,
mm-hmm.
and two, her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of her mom, because I mean, this is like the horror stories you hear about those dance moms.
Mm-hmm.
Those teen dance moms and like I could only imagine what it's like to find out that your parent has been trying to vicariously live through you for your entire life, and as a result, when they tell you they love you, is it just it's a means to an end as opposed to a term of endearment. So it's, yeah, like you said, down goes Frazier.
So then we move on to Queen Maeve. And Queen Maeve is a Wonder Woman allegory, essentially. She's a Wonder Woman stand-in. And Queen Maeve is a bisexual alcoholic who is well-versed with Homelander's true human being side, as well as being someone who has always been too cowardly or too weak to stand up for what she actually believes in, if she believes in anything anymore. And that was made also evident in episode 5 when she goes and visits her ex-girlfriend, but that didn't go so well. She's cowardly, she's cruel, and a lot of people are like, oh, she's such a victim. Well, I think she allowed herself to be victimized because of her own cruelty. I think she's a very bad person. Even the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, kind of alludes to the fact, like, I know the real you. Don't bullshit me. So even Queen Maeve has always hid part of herself, and that really kind of makes her one of the more, I don't want to say one of the more complex characters, because having a dual life or a dual idea doesn't really make you deep or creative. It's one generic note. But I do think she has more to offer than just that, like that she's ashamed of her bisexuality. But it is an interesting facet, and to see more of what she can do in season 2 as more of her life continues to unravel around her, especially with the death of a certain team leader, if you will. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. By the by, what the fuck happened to that baby?
What are you talking about? You talking about?
I'm talking about episode 8. I'm talking about the baby.
Oh yeah, no. Oh my God, we all twins. Because I'm sitting up there thinking the same thing. I'm like, holy hell, that baby's gone, isn't it? Because I'm like, he had no reason. Because we know 2 people survived the explosion, but
we know why one of them did, and it was to punish the other.
Yeah, I'm sitting there like he was mugging that baby since episode 1.
Yup.
And
we'll get there.
We never found out the baby's paternity because it wasn't his kid.
That we were told.
Exactly. But I'm sitting there like, obviously this could be a red herring, and he saved the kid or something happened, because this show did a lot of, here's what's in my left hand, but I'm not showing you the right one. Flashback. And so that could easily be happening. But in my mind, he just left that kid.
That's what I'm thinking. So we're back to A-Train. He is a narcissistic kind of allegory for kind of modern day athletes, how they put so much emphasis and onus on their titles. He is the fastest man alive, and that's the only thing that matters to him. I forgot who the other guy is, the other speedster that's gunning for his crown.
What it was? Atomic something? What was it?
Was it like Atomic Side-Eye or Atomic Burst or
It wasn't Zoom.
It wasn't Zoom. That's funny. Well, we'll figure it out later. So he's all obsessed with keeping his speedster record, Fastest Man Alive, in place. Shockwave. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's going to do anything he can, including using something called Compound V, a steroid, essentially that gives him faster abilities, but it also seems to be having a negative effect as well because it's not only making him addictive, excuse me, but it's also breaking his body down, making him more and more reliant on it. And that's a very slippery slope. He also has, and we'll get to this later on, but he also has a very sharp break in this show after the events of what happens to his girlfriend. So we'll get to that.
Yeah, kudos to young Jesse T. Usher, who plays A-Train. He's just coming off a Shaft, and I've been watching him since like Survivor's Remorse, which was another Star show. I thought he did a really good job with his role, and kudos to his brother, played by Christian Keys. I like that relationship, and just to kind of the tuggle back and forth. You really kind of felt the opposite sides both were on, but also kind of the love that he depended on his brother, but obviously pushed him away when he kind of went against the grain, in which, because like I said, it was all about his aim was just that and the third, and he would have did anything to maintain it, even to the point of his own detriment, which we ultimately came really down to it by the final episode. But just that scene where he was like, I got something for you that you can't catch after he got injured. He just drove off, because sometimes all you can do is all you can do for somebody until you can't do anymore, and you got to back away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like you said, I think that's the best thing when you talk about being an allegory for these athletes, because what happens when these guys, I can't not have my, I have to keep my spot by any means necessary, so, that addicted to some type of opioid or steroid or whatever, that's a legitimate thing that a lot of people just haven't ever recovered from. So
it's a very unique situation to see someone like that get played out as a hero, and to watch something so common, something so prevalent in today's society be pretty much parlayed into a storyline involving a god. A lot of these characters are viewed as gods. He's Hermes. He's the fastest man alive. So I think that's kind of a unique perspective, and it's kind of it magnifies off of some storylines we've seen in the Flash TV show where Barry is viewed as a villain. But what happens if you take the PG social justice warrior goggles off of the Flash and you allow it to go to R? What if you allow that amp to go to 11? This is what happens. And Jesse T. Usher is great because there's a lot of scenes where you can tell he's so deep in his own muck that he doesn't know how to get out. And the only thing you can think of is going to Homelander, who is not the kind of guy you want to be getting advice from. So, there's that. We go from A-Train to Marvin, Mother's Milk. I don't know why he says that his mom gave him that name. I don't think that's true. I really don't. That is that's a rough name. So he's a college graduate who is working in a detention center for young boys who are dealing with behavioral issues, and he has like the best opening scene to any introduction character in terms of not being violent, destructive, or horrifying. These two young boys are fighting over who has the next go on the ping pong table, which, fun fact, used to be called Whiff Waff. Thank you, John Oliver. And he walks in and goes, is this what I taught you guys? Put your name at the bottom of the list and try to be like the gentleman that I have taught you to be. And they're like, yes, sir, yes, sir. And then as soon as he turns around, they start fighting again, which I thought was hilarious. But then he walks into his office and he sees Billy there, and I sent Marcus the GIF, and it's just him going, "Oh hell no!" And I'm just like, if that's not our dynamic, hey, Marcus, I got a new idea. Oh, hell no. He's probably the nicest member of the group. He takes everything to heart. He doesn't view a failure like everyone else would on this group. He's a lot more in line with Huey in how he views the world. He still wants to do good, and he still believes he's on the right side of things. And I think at one point he even tells Huey, like, I don't know if it was the exact phrase, but he's like, don't lose the forest for the trees, or to that extent. And Huey goes, I'll pay whatever costs I need to get this done. And he responds a few minutes later with, any costs? Because something had just happened that made Huey reconsider his stance. And they definitely have a lot more in line, moralistically speaking, than any of the other three members of the team that would come to be. So there's a lot there going on. Plus, he's doing everything that he's doing for his child. So when a reviewer called this show nihilistic, I scoffed because you didn't watch the show. If you think the show is nihilistic, you don't know, one, what the word means, and two, you haven't seen the show. So I think he's one of my favorite characters, but I just can't get past that name, man. That name is something else. What'd you think of Mother's Milk?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Laz, man. Laz Alonso. Watching him for a long time too, and I love this character in the show because he was like you said, he was a level-headed guy. He played like he had a lot to lose, even when we didn't always know what that was, and then we found out what that was. It made perfect sense. But yeah, he was an intimidating force too. Just physically looking at, didn't necessarily execute that all the time because he was so busy being the straight man of Billy's kind of unrelenting. British, just a-hole at times.
Mm-hmm.
But then of course his back and forth banter and stuff with Frenchie was hilarious to start off before Frenchie kind of had his emotions brought out by somebody. Yeah, I dug it. Like you said, I don't think I'm gonna ever get used to the name Mother's Milk. Like I guess I can rock with MM, but yeah, the whole Mother's Milk thing, specifically when there's a part of somebody else's store who legitimately has something to do with milk. It kind of doesn't fit, but it is what it is.
So then we go to the Deep. We've already mentioned him. He sexually assaults Starlight on her first day. He then kind of treats her like shit for the rest of the time until she finally tells him, like, enough. And he almost baits her at one point because when she gets angry, she summons light from local objects and causes electronics to explode. And he's like, look what you just did. You attacked me. And she's like, I didn't attack you. He's like, look what you just did. No one's going to believe you. And it was such a smarmy, slimy, skeezy thing to do. And apparently he's done this to other women, as we find out throughout the series. Although that wasn't too much of a shocker. Like, no one went, oh no, I can't believe that. Well, we all believed it. He does have a come-to-Jesus moment in episode 6 or 7, and I'll never be able to watch that scene again. Just going to be honest with you on that one. I don't do well with visual grossness.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because, even with that, because that got brought up to my attention later, because I didn't catch that line. Well, not that line, but that point of the way he responded and kind of what happened in the room after she used the powers. That clearly he had done that before, which that line that he dropped alone was a clear indicator of that. But what I was paying more attention to, because it just randomly stuck out to me, because initially she turns around, how this kicks off, they're having a conversation, her back's turned, she says, like, I had a crush on you, and she turns around and his pants are down,
his little dolphin is out.
Yeah, his fins showing, and
nice blowhole, buddy.
Exactly, and we get a nice unnecessary, for me, shot of his untanned cheeks. But I was thinking, I'm like, okay, why wasn't he totally naked? I don't know why that just rung up in my mind. I was like, why didn't he just take his pants off? And then we found out later, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Don't ever get caught with your top down again. But I appreciated the level in which they took the whole being the Deep deal, but Yeah, that kind of rung out to me. But yeah, this actor did great with this role too. I think he also is the one that probably won't get enough praise just because people aren't always able to disassociate a fictional character's actions from the actor.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be like, "Oh, he was shit." And I'm like, "No, the character was shit. The acting and performance was executed magnificently because of where the character had to go by season's end." So.
And the thing with the Deep is he's almost what I feel like they tried to do with Homelander. The Deep is a sexual assaultist master. Like, he's done it more times than you can count. But there's a sincerity in what he wants to do for the world. But it's counteracted by his desire to... And, like, everything is compounded on the fact that he feels like a joke. And that's partly, in my opinion, why he lashes out against women, because he feels like a joke, so he has to put that anger on someone else, and that's why he does the assaulting. But he wants to actually do good, and we see that several times throughout the season where he tries to rescue dolphins who are being kept in subpar conditions. He wants to go and help the U.S. soldiers because he has a true, actual calling to help. You know, he's actively trying to do good things, but he's so inundated with a lack of self-esteem and this desire to prove himself at all costs that he comes across as an abusive piece of crap. And it's very hard to watch that scene that we keep alluding to, because that's him realizing what he's been doing to other people. And it's done to him. And you realize that it's happening, and the look on his face sells it all. And he's the actor who plays him is Chase Crawford, and he did a brilliant job selling that.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most cringeworthy. Like in this scene, this show just kept doing the hold my beer thing with the cringeworthy scenes. But this was like viscerally evoking, because you looking at it, it's like, oh, and even you watching, you're like, oh, god damn it, stop, get your fingers. But it's like you're sitting there, it's like, this is his comeuppance in a way.
Yeah. And
this needs to happen if he's ever gonna get to the other side of this and actually grow from it, which is going to be its own journey. But that kind of needed to happen. It's funny how things can turn on you in a dime, because the irony of it, because that's how he kind of flipped on her. Starlight in the beginning. He was this nice, welcoming guy, and then she turned around and the dick was whipping out his dick. And now here you got this nice girl that I'm pretty sure you thought was unassuming. He brought home, and she was just down for the pound or whatever, and she turned out to damn near be a supervillain. Like, I thought while it was happening, I'm like, wait a minute, does she have powers? Was he set up? And then it just turned out she was just an aggressive freak.
Yup. And you're right. Like, the context of the scene of him being assaulted, it's hard to watch just out of an empathetic point of view, but it wasn't hard to watch overall in terms of tone. But the addition of the gills and the sounds and like the edges, I'm like, oh, this is so gross. Like, I don't do well with that kind of shit.
Yeah, because he had to sell it. If he didn't sell it specifically in his face, if he did not sell that wouldn't have worked.
Right. Oh, you could have done it with anything, but I mean, just the shot of the finger going in the gill, like, I nearly retched watching that. Like, oh my god, it's so hard to watch. Tomer Capone played the Frenchie. I think he's given a name at some point. I don't know, but he's just, and like when we meet him, he has almost a Russian-like accent. I'm like, did you not know how to do a French one when you started filming? But then, like, near the end of the episode, it started to become more French in tone. So Butcher goes to him when they basically have to deal with translucence, and he's arguably the best character of the whole show, because he's at 10 all the time. He's got an abusive, aggressive girlfriend as well, but we don't see her after like episode 7. I think she disappears, and he's also really sweet, because when they are trying to find more about this Compound V shit, he finds Kamiko, who's just known as the female. And he, against the desires of Mother's Milk, that name will never sit well with me, lets her go, and she destroys like an entire fucking Yakuza unit. So he has a genuine desire to help people as well. That's why I don't get really uptight about the idea oh, all the male superheroes are real pieces of shit. Because you look at all the female regular people, they're all pretty gutless. So they do a nice job balancing out the idea of male and female not really having a set one-to-one comparison or a set one-to-one antagonist. The dudes on The Boys are the most truest and not maybe self-righteous, but honest and down-to-earth guys you could want. Yeah, they're murderers, but so are the superheroes. And the superhero males are the exact opposite. What happens when you have too much power? But it's flipped on its head because you look at the three most empowered women on this show. For one reason or another, they're terrible people. So there's no real direct correlation that men are bad and women are good, or women are bad and men are good. It's a nice even keel, and I like that. It's a great story. It's a great message. It's a great presentation. And Frenchie's part of that.
Yeah, it's not black. Yeah, it's not black and white. It's the story of the gray. These characters are human, and you just got other human, you just got superhumans on the other side. That don't. The perception of them is to operate altruistically, but that's not the reality of the situation. And even the reality of the situation is steered in a way because of, they work for Volt. So it's very much run it's such a great depiction of how humans actually operate, and then how just the corporate structure in general operates. No matter what, in a superhero setting or what have you, this is kind of how the world works. It's goods, services. Who's the best for this job? Who can sell and tell these stores the best, and what's best for business. That whole deal. So
insurances, a lot of the reason why you join up with a group and an outlet like this is to have the insurance aspect.
Yeah.
A-Train, if he wasn't part of Vought, probably would have had to pay out far more than, I think it was $25,000. That was all they had to pay out.
Yeah, and his dad was like, "Look, man, we need this money, man. You got to take that." And first I would have took the check because specifically everything he was gonna have to go through after that. But when he was looked at Billy, he was like, "Hey, you ever seen a kid?" An asshole whip out a $25 check and just drove off. It's like, no, you probably shouldn't have, a-hole.
Next up, we have Kamiko, played by Karen Fukuhara. She was such a unique presence because she's so violent, but also so childlike in a lot of ways. She originally was a forced terrorist by the Shining Light terrorist outfit, because her brother was kidnapped and their parents were murdered by the outfit, so they had no other choice, and she stayed in order to protect her brother. At some point, she gets sold and trafficked out to America by Vought, and as we would soon find out, who was actually pulling the strings on that one. That was a fucking kick in the nuts. She gets experimented on by Compound V out of hundreds of people, and she's one of the few to actually be able to take to it as an adult. So she becomes the female, arguably one of the more dominant, physically imposing characters. And while she didn't fight a lot of supers, the one she did fight and basically lost to, but gives you an idea how strong he is, because we've seen what she can do against the regular man, was Black Noir, who thought he killed her, but she's basically Wolverine. She's the X-23 essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. God bless Karen Fukuhara, because I feel like I just keep seeing her in roles kind of like this. Obviously me referencing coming off of Katana. And obviously she's worked in other stuff, but she does this stuff so well. It's very hard for an actor to do so much without saying hardly anything. And she definitely deserves a lot of credit for bringing a lot of dimensions to this character that really didn't speak, really didn't operate under the normal guys we see just humans operate. But she told so much with her eyes and the way she moved and the way she reacted to things. And obviously those action beats and the way that character kind of evolved towards the end with a very tragic backstory as well, I thought was really good. So
I didn't even realize that she played Katana in Suicide Squad. Huh.
Yeah.
Look at that. She's awesome. I loved her. Then we had Black Noir. I do know how the comics portray him eventually, so I won't go into that because they might do the same thing here. But for what he is, he's the allegory of Batman. He doesn't talk. He's often reading or playing the piano. He's a very weird dude. He likes knives. Okay. That's about it. Beat up Kimiko.
Yeah.
But that was really all he did. So.
Yeah, that was great. I'm like, look, it's Snake Eyes' cousin.
Basically, he looked like Snake Eyes, only with a dumber mask. And then we had Madeline Stillwell, played by Elizabeth Shue, who was killed off just in time to be able to do Cobra Kai Season 3.
Oh, is she coming in as the ex-girlfriend?
She is the ex-girlfriend. She was in the original Karate Kid movie as the girlfriend.
Oh, holy hell. It's going to be so awkward for me seeing her in a different role because, every time I see her now, she's going to make me thirsty. And in the context of Cobra Kai, that's not going to be what that is. So...
She was also the second Jennifer in Back to the Futures 2 and 3, so...
Well, I'll say this, the woman has aged well.
Yeah, she has. She's like 50, I think, or 53, something like that. She is a newborn... I shouldn't say new. She's 55. She's a new mother to a little baby boy. And she is not only the Seven's lead liaison with the 82nd floor, whatever it is, but she's also the personal manager and handler of Homelander. She basically does everything she can to satiate Homelander's aggression, from giving him compliments, to stroking his hair and ego, to letting him nurse, apparently. Wow. To even having sex with him. But she reveals that the only reason she's ever done that is because she's afraid of him. And that sets off the most graphic kill outside of I would say probably the most graphic kill, because we didn't turn away from this. We saw every second in the series when Homelander burns her eyes and skull into just a hollow husk.
It was so gruesome, and the way it was executed. Because I had a feeling that this was what he was gonna do because of the way, we've seen so many things. We kind of tell how it's gonna go as the scene is going on. But it was so. It's like one of them things where kids say, like, I was doing something bad and my parent hit me so hard, I did the silent cry.
Mm-hmm.
I was like. Like that thing.
Or you land on like your handlebar and you're just like, because you're trying to breathe.
It was so quick but so gruesome. She couldn't scream.
Oh my god!
Like she lightly just sighed, like it was. Oh man, that scene, like the horror elements they put with him in this show.
It's always You're right, and it's always preluded by the glowing red eyes. Always.
Yeah, and this ain't heat vision, people. This full on lasers.
Basically. He's considered a guest star. Alex Hassel plays Translucent, who is the member of the Seven who can morph his skin into diamond-hard carbon metamaterial that wraps light around him. He's a pervert. He's a sycophant. But he's also a coward. And he's the first Supes that Huey gets involved with. And he's also the first one to be killed. And we'll get more to him when we talk about the episodes. We also have, and I'm going to run through these recurring characters a little bit quicker. We have Susan Rayner, played by Jennifer Esposito, who is the head of the CIA and a gutless coward herself. Hugh Campbell, who is admittedly a gutless coward, but is proud of his son when his son steps up to defend his own desires and beliefs, played by Simon Pegg with a weird American accent. We have my favorite secondary character in the entire show, played by Colby Minifie. She played Ashley Barrett, the publicist for Vought International, and is Starlight's agent, and is constantly the one getting shit on for all of Starlight's dumbass behavior. I loved it. We have Anne.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We have Ann Cusack playing Donna January, Starlight's mother, who, as we already mentioned her before, is just not a good person. And Nathan is A-Train's brother, played by Christian Keys. Yeah. There's a few other smaller characters. We have Seth Reed, the eunuch, who is also a public relations writer for Vought, played by Malcolm Barrett. We have the Christian-based Ezekiel, who is an Elastic superhuman who is a cape for Christ, but he's actually a closeted homosexual. And that ends up being just all kinds of weirdness. We have Huey's girlfriend, who we've mentioned before, Robin Ward, played by Jess Salguero. She was gorgeous. I was almost more heartbroken than Huey the character was when she died. I was like, I want to see more of her.
Yeah, just that relationship and that interaction and how she kind of, she really just like evened him out. And then when you go back in the thing and he said, what he said, my last words to her was, don't talk crap about Joel Osteen.
No, my last words to her were, don't talk bad about Billy Joel.
Yeah, Billy Joel. And then I'm surprised they didn't do a thing, by the way, where they didn't have him like keep her hands in a box or something.
Yeah, that would have been something.
This is the show for that. But yeah, that would have been a bit, yeah.
We have Layla Robbins playing Grace Mallory. She's the former head of the boys, but an incident with Lamplighter where her grandchildren were killed leads her to abandon the cause as it got to be too much of a cost. Stan Edgar's played by Giancarlo Esposito. He's the gentleman from Breaking Bad. He's the supervisor of Stillwell at Vought International. We also have Dr. Jonah Volgabaum, the Vought scientist who created and raised Homelander, played by John Doman. We have Queen Mob's ex-girlfriend, Nicole Goria Damad, who plays Elena. We have Mesmer. We're going to get to some of these characters more in depth here, and I want to save Mesmer for a second. We then have Rachel, Becky's sister and Billy's sister-in-law, who makes one appearance in episode 3, I think. I don't know why they credited her with such a big role, but whatever. And then we have Courtney, played by Jackie Tone. I have no idea who this character is. Production. She's the chick who was trying to come up with the intros for the new show, and they couldn't get Starlight to do her shots. That's who she was. Okay, never mind. She had a very minor role. But there's 3 characters that weren't involved in the show a lot, but had big character arcs. Charlotte, a.k.a. Popclaw, played by Brittany Allen. Becca Butcher, who we've already told you was played by Chantal Van Satten. And Mesmer, played by Haley Joel Osment. These 3 characters may not have had a lot of screen time, but were arguably the 3 most impactful characters in the show that weren't main characters. Charlotte is a Compound V addict and is the girlfriend of A-Train. And she's a C-D-list superhero who makes a few bad B-list movies. And that was one of the big elements I loved about this movie, about the show, was that all the superheroes had their own movies. And I love that. That was so great. I like that. What do you think about that? Was it too meta for you, watching these superheroes pretend to be fake superheroes in movies about them?
No, it's just another dimension of this whole brand situation. Like, it's kind of like what we're seeing with a lot of these social media people. They're making they're making money like for advertising something, and then they go and kind of expand that to I don't just get money now for playing games and recording it. I get money from playing games, recording it, and then having you watch me play the games while recording it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just extending the brand, no matter how like crazy it seems. That's just how it is.
We also have Haley Joel Osment's character, Mesmer. He is a former superhero and former child star who actually was friends with A-Train, and they started on the same show together. But an incident, we don't know what, causes him to lose custody of his daughter, and now he's working, or at least agreeing to do work with the boys in order to spend more time with her. That is really a big, giant fucking catalyst. I'm on the mindset that it was like an alcohol-related situation, but it could also have been more of a darker, deeper molestation situation. I don't know.
And this is for who? Mother's Milk?
No, this is for Mesmer by Haley Joel Osment. The mind reader.
Oh yeah, that character. Yeah, that sad park scene with his kid, Jesus Christ.
That hurt.
Yeah, it had to be something. Something weird, but I think it spoke a lot to the character, specifically when Because when he did the phone call, which was even sadder, he was like, I could kind of tell she was putting on just to get it over with, and just to humor the entire situation, specifically me, because she was basically giving him a cold shoulder without the direct cold shoulder, and it sucked. But sometimes being a parent is a tricky thing. But yeah, I don't know if it was drugs or alcohol, but it's not like we'll know now.
Yeah, I think it was a car accident that Haley Joel instigated because he was drunk. Because it's not that she's. I've seen reactions of a parent who's done something to a child. It's very different than what she was emanating. She wasn't afraid of him. She just didn't seem to care. Yeah. And that, to me, makes it seem like she didn't know him. Because at one point, she even goes, I don't even know you. And he goes, well, here's like a DVD. You can watch me. And she goes, I don't have a DVD player. And she kind of just walks away. Even a child who of an abused parent would still take it and be like, all right, thanks. Because it's awkward.
It's that I can't miss something I never had.
Right. And for me, that's why I think Mesmer got drunk, had a car accident, she suffered head trauma. And that's why she's as indifferent to him as anything. And instead of working to get a relationship back, he kind of just taps out. And then Billy Butcher makes him tap out with his face. And then, of course, we have Chantal Van Setten's character, Becca Butcher, who goes missing 8 years prior after a quote-unquote rape by Statlander. And I have a reason for the quote-unquote. So let's hit this episode by episode. I told you, this show is going to be all about the boys. We're going to have enough time to talk about Marcus's new favorite YouTube thing and then Rango, but that's it. we weren't fucking with you, people. We weren't fucking with you. So the episode won the name of the game. Basically sets everything in motion. I'm going to read well, I don't want to read all of this. It's long. So Robin dies. The deep sexually assaults Starlight. Billy Butcher comes into Huey's life and takes him to a superhero sex club, essentially. And Marcus, this is the most holy like, Eric Kripke must have read all of the Marvel's what was the universe Miles Morales was from? Ultimate Universe books that he could get, because there's literally a scene where Ant-Man shrinks down and goes inside of his girlfriend.
Went straight Magic School Bus on her ass.
Yes, he did. And in this show, you see some mini superhero flinging himself off of his table into a girl's vagina.
Or freaking Stretch McGrath going double palms on some dude.
Yep. Ezekiel being the meat inside of a dude's sandwich. And it's there that Huey and Butcher find the video of A-Train bragging about the fact that when he hit Huey's girlfriend, a molar of hers went into his mouth and he swallowed it. And this other superhero starts joking about how gross that is, and they're laughing about it. And that further builds Huey's anger.
It's that one of the many things the show did so great was they did this great thing. They kept doing this great thing with Huey, and like going back and forth between this anxiety and damn near panic attack situation. Mm-hmm. It was damn near his superpower, and eventually it would come full circle, but it would damn near be his superpower because obviously this is the first episode we'll get into it. It's kind of like it is his fight or flight situation, right? Because he made the choice, but yeah, just anytime somebody said Robin
or A-Train. That was another.
Yeah, or A-Train. He just did this thing, and it was so great because it really. And back off to your point, you're saying you don't know, you still be on that curb.
Yeah.
And it was like every time that got brought up, it was like he still was.
Yeah.
On that curb, so the way he was looking, and he was like, it's like they made a point to actually emphasize when he blinked because it was that traumatic, and it was just. It's great, man, because it's just like I don't think that the concept of PTSD really gets the full depiction that it deserves in TV and film sometimes.
I agree. So there's kind of three key moments in this episode with Huey. There's the moment where he meets Billy and he goes to the superhero club and he gets evidence, and Then Butcher sends him to go meet with A-Train to plant a tracking device or a listening device in the main room. No one's the wiser, but what they don't take into account for is that translucence in the bathroom when Huey drops this transmitter. Now, just before then, Huey meets a young girl by the name of Starlight. Though he doesn't know she's Starlight. He just sees that she's crying on the bench and offers a kind ear, and they talk, and she talks about how she hates her job because, of course, she had just been assaulted by the Deep. And Huey talks about how he's kind of going through something similar, and he doesn't know what to do. And they kind of resolve both. It's kind of like when two characters are talking about their same issues to one another, but they're not responding to one another. They're still just taking turns talking about their own issues until they get to their own points eventually. And Huey goes on and rejoins with Butcher and does the job while Starlight, I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm going to go and I'm going to be a hero because that's what I've always wanted to be. And when he's then trying to put the transmitter device into the room, she walks in, causing him to drop it. That's where Translucent sees it. Translucent then follows Huey to the car and then to his place of work and beats the shit out of Huey because he thinks Huey's a spy. Because he is. And Butcher, who had told Huey he's done, you're done, you're not going to be doing any more, you've done your job, I'll call you if I need you, shows back up and drives his old-ass hoopty through the front, I think it's like a 1970 Cadillac or something like that. It's this big old Oldsmobile-looking motherfucker from the 80s. Drives through the front window and takes out Translucent, and Butcher and Translucent starts fighting, and Butcher starts mocking him for his name. Translucent doesn't mean invisible asshole, and they're fighting, and then eventually Translucent's about to kill Billy, and Huey, as you mentioned before, had a flight or fight moment, and he's on his way out because Billy tells him to leave, but instead he comes back, takes the electrical cord from a now dangling... basically what happens was Translucent rips the TV off the wall, leaving an exposed cord. Huey grabs the exposed cord and then electrocutes Translucent to presumably death. And that's like the big come-to-Jesus moment.
It was so great because it took me back to, I think, a favorite film of me and Chad's. Well, I know this movie definitely has one of our favorite scenes. It took me back to Hollow Man.
Ooh.
And that whole time when they had to fight him, it was like, you need to cover him with something, get him in smoke, or do something so you could see him, so you could get his ass. And then when Billy, I think he like threw some water on him or did something.
No, what happened was Translucent punched him so hard that he busted his mouth, and Billy spat blood on him.
Yeah. There you go. Which is perfect because he's a brawler,
yep.
Of course, because he's a brawler, bare knuckle. But yeah, that was great. That whole thing was great, and great on those actors for selling that the way they did. I don't know how they shot that, or what that looked like. I should say when they shot. Of course, they shot it, but what that looked like. So that whole thing was great. And of course, having Huey be the smart tech guy, like his skin is conductible because of the way, the way in which he goes, quote unquote, translucent. That makes his skin highly conductible. So,
which was
he's naked the whole time. Yeah.
Yes, which was given away on a interview with like Jimmy Fallon, I think, that they were all watching at some point. One of the other minor arcs in the first episode was the mayor of Baltimore has come to basically negotiate for a hero, and they agree that this dude was, I think it's like $400 million they agree on, but I forget his name. It's something like so African that I'm like, wow, that's borderline offensive. I forget his name. Do you remember it?
No, it might have been. It was so flippant, and I don't even know at the time if I was like, wow, that's really, and I might have been like, oh, that's racist, and kept moving. But no, I don't remember it either. It was just so for that scene alone.
Yes, we don't see or reference him again after that scene. Yeah. Well, he's a black superhero, and the mayor of Baltimore is looking for a superhero that his constituents, there we go, of Baltimore can relate to. And Baltimore's a pretty heavily black city, so it makes sense that you would get a black superhero. So they agree on $400 million from that. He's like, he's not exactly a $400 million superhero. Well, what about like 260? And she's like, nope, $400 million, or else we're gonna go to like, I forget what she said, Delaware or Omaha, I don't remember. So basically, he then brings up Compound V, which is the first reference of it in the show. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And later on, I think he's in a car. And she calls him back and says, we'll do it for $280. And the mayor of Baltimore goes, okay, that's fair. And she goes, it goes without saying you won't bring up Compound V again. And he goes, I won't. He gets on a plane with his son, and they're flying back to Baltimore. And then all of a sudden they see Homelander. And the little kid's like, oh my God, it's Homelander.
It's
and
Homelander.
I can hear myself echoing, and it's my voice.
Oh, my God. First horror element with Homelander.
Yep.
So great with this eye stuff. Because they did this thing where they the way they shot it, you couldn't see him at first, only the kid could, and then he came into focus, and the second he did, those eyes lit up. and then the dad, they zoomed in on the dad's face, and all I could think about was Dragon Ball Abridged when Vegeta let off that final flash, and Cell was like, "Oh, cute." He named, "Oh shit."
So he destroys the plane, heat visions the shit out of it, and it crashes into the ocean. The next episode, the Deep is looking for it, and it's there that we find out just truly how despicable Homelander is. But eventually Homelander reveals to Stillwell that he did it because he heard he heard the mayor threatening Stillwell with blackmail, and he thought that if he killed the mayor of Baltimore, she would love him.
Yeah, because going back to that scene right quick, it was quick, but it happened while they were talking.
You see him.
All you saw in her was he flew by real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait a minute, that was awkward. And then, of course, it came back up because as sadistic as this guy is, this is a thinking villain.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that came back. Yeah, but just that was... Because at first we were like, Compound V. You don't know what Compound V is till they develop it, and it kind of makes sense with the whole world. But the fact that even when, he's not in the building, he's like watching and listening on everything. It's great. But again, this is an offshoot of Superman, and in a lot of times in the Superman comics or in the series, the character will fly up into the sky and just listen
to
everything. So I think that was a perfectly offshoot call back there.
This was a better... What was that? Brightburn? This was a better Brightburn than Brightburn.
That one scene with him outside the plane was better than Brightburn.
So in episode 2, we get introduced to a few new characters and a few new ideas. We find out about the Mallory files. We find out about CIA Department Director Susan Rayner. We also meet Doppelganger, who we only see for one episode, at least we think. We don't know. We also meet Frenchie in this episode. The general gist of this episode is kind of multi-layered. On one hand, we have Stillwell trying to blackmail the Oklahoma congressman, he's a senator, named Calhoun, into approving this soups armed deal. Basically, Stillwell wants to make the military soups friendly so that they can sell their contracted soup talent to militaries for profit. And if you know anything about how this world works, the biggest profiteers in anything is military technology. That's just how it is. So they're trying to get in on that piece of the pie. But the senator won't do it. So he meets a young woman, and they have relations, but she morphs into this large, overweight man. And record him having sex with the guy. And it's so weird.
Oh, this scene was so good. This was the other cringeworthy scene for me.
Mm-hmm. It feels different. I wonder why.
Because the way that they did it did... Because the dude's going to come back up in another scene, but the way that they did it in the middle of the scene, I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, God, this show.
So later on, he comes face to face with Stillwell, who does the whole if you don't do what we say, we'll expose you. And he goes, "There's nothing." And the senator goes, "There's nothing wrong with being gay." And Mallory goes, "There is in Oklahoma." And I'm just like, "Oh, I felt that. So he eventually relents and says he'll do what he can to get the bill pushed through. And that's kind of, to the best of my understanding from episode 2, that's really all there was for that arc. Then we had a smaller arc again with Jenny. What's her name? Not Light.
Starlight.
Yeah, Starlight. There's so many names to keep track of. She ends up basically having her own come to Jesus moment where she's kind of unhappy. But then she runs into an actual attempted rape. And she ends up blowing the two dudes away and kicking the shit out of them. The girl escapes, but somebody records her doing it. And that leads to a conflict where I think Annie, not Annie, she's Annie, where Ashley, the assistant, goes off on her like, "What are you doing? Like, you just hurt your brand." And Annie goes, I defended a girl from 2 rapists, and Ashley says, like, "Can you prove that? Did you get any video? Did you get the victim's name? Did you do anything?" And it makes Annie feel really bad. Then the next morning she goes in prepared to be fired, only to find out that they love the fact that she did it. She's trending really well. She's got high approval ratings, and they're going to double down on this. Really showing you just how fickle corporate America is. And I love that because she did the right thing, but they were scolding her for not doing the right thing correctly. And goddamn, if that's not modern day USA, I don't know what is, Marcus.
No, it's perfect like you said. It's not about, it's like the core thing. It ain't about what like it says, what you can prove.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they was right on both sides. Obviously, she's gonna save people, but that was also another thing that's so perfect for this world. You can't do anything anymore without getting recorded some kind of way.
Yep.
Whether it's a camera that's stationed somewhere or somebody recording it.
It's haunting how accurate that was.
And you have to, at that point, she's a public figure, so you have to be mindful. Because, and specifically with this show, and this goes so perfectly almost with it, this is the show that they could do the real-life Incredibles thing, where the guy attempts to suicide and gets injured and then sues the hero.
Mm-hmm.
This is that show. So I thought it was perfect, and she really... That character, I don't think that actress gets enough credit for that character because, like you said, she played a real pivotal role because she was basically her handler, in a sense. And she was right. It was like, did you get it on tape? Can you get the girl to correct your story? Like, no, then you have nothing. And this is nothing but bad press. Now, it worked out in her favor, but that was more of a coincidence as opposed to something she did.
Right.
A convenient coincidence for the company. But she, there's rules to just being a hero. It's not just so simple as saving because, and this is another thing they do in this show too, collateral damage also comes into play.
Yeah, there's a lot of collateral damage in this show. So so there's a throwaway little moment where A-Train goes and replaces Translucent in a meet and greet with a young boy who's dying of cancer. And he tells the boy, "When you get better, I'm going to teach you how to run fast." And the boy goes, "Really? You're going to teach me how to outrun cancer?" And A-Train's like, "God damn, I need to get out of here."
Yeah, and then he was like, "Yeah, you know what, man? I'm gonna come back in a couple weeks." And they paint up to the doctor like, he ain't got that long. He ain't got that long. And I didn't want to laugh, but it was hilarious.
Well, this is a dark comedy, man. It's like that whole scene was supposed to be.
And like I said, I've been watching Justin Tilson for a while now, and in his show that's no longer on Survivor's Remorse, they did a storyline which I appreciate. They did a storyline where he because in the show he's a football player, and he's trying to expand his brand and all that, and he's basically he hates hospitals, but his family has him go do this Make-A-Wish thing, and they did this storyline where basically the Make-A-Wish kid is an a-hole. Because he's dying, he wants to get this athlete. He was like, "Look, man, I didn't come here for all this nice goody stuff. I'm dying, man. Show me the strip clubs, the hoes, the money. I want the lifestyle. I'm finna check out of here." And then he was like, "If you don't show me this stuff or give me what I want, I'm gonna tell them that you were shitty to me." So he basically blackmailed the family. End up coming to the sister. Ends up basically allowing him to watch her shower nude to shut this dude up. And I'm like, this is so ironic that this is the second time he's been involved with almost a Make-A-Wish gone wrong scenario.
Oh, God, that's too funny. The big arc of the episode was Butcher and Huey taking Translucent to Frenchie to find a way to kill him. This is something that Huey does not sit well with, and even getting to a point where Huey looks at a poster, because they go to a rundown fast food place, and the poster says, "Keep your hands clean." And now Huey kind of keeps that into his mind as, don't kill him, don't be involved in this, don't do this. And throughout the episode, they're finding all kinds of ways to try to do it. Billy brings his giant 50 cal and shoots him, and that doesn't go well. They electrocute him a bunch of times. That doesn't work. And then Frenchie comes up with an idea after watching a turtle where he realized that if they electrocute him enough, they can knock him out and they can insert an explosive up his ass. Because he's not invincible inside and out. So they then start plying information from him. And he reveals that A-Train was with a D-list superhero known as Popclaw right before Huey's girlfriend Robin was killed. At that point, Homelander shows up. And Frenchie and Butcher go to try to distract them. They do it by calling Frenchie's girlfriend to set an explosion in Frenchie's apartment while they distract Homelander until the explosion happens. While they're outside dealing with that situation, Translucence finds a way to get out of the cell. He short circuits the electrical fencing on his cell because he urinates into a cup and throws it onto the battery. Gets out and basically tells Huey, like, listen, you don't need to do this. You can just let me go. It's not a big deal. We can be done with this. And he starts walking away, and Huey, for whatever reason, snaps from trying to keep this guy alive, get questioned from him, prolong the inevitable, to being the one with the trigger in his hand and switching the detonator and exploding Translucence all over the wall. And it was one of the most whoa moments of the show because you kind of knew Huey would be the one to do it, but you didn't realize that Huey would do it so emotionlessly. There was no reason to do it. He had gotten the information he wanted, but he did it anyway because he was still so enraged, and he.
Because it's like you look at that pose, like keep your hands clean. It's like at this point, how clean are my hands?
Mm-hmm.
And probably in his mind, it's like he's not gonna keep his hand clean. A-Train didn't keep his hands clean. It did. So at this point, like that's what I said, like that whole moment, and then of course, just the whole thing that he literally died from an ass bomb is some real irony. But the whole thing about they had to create a diversion to get Homelander away, because the way it got set up, we thought they would go blow up the building that they were in, but they blew up another building. But yeah, that was just it was crazy. But just that whole thing between keep your hands clean and then looking at him, and it's really parallel because once again he's in another situation covered in blood, wondering what in the hell just happened.
So we moved to episode 3. Not as many arcs this time around. We get the introduction of Mother's Milk, who we talked about before, and we also find out more about Compound V, which was a performance-enhancing substance that Popclaw and A-Train used in their day-to-day. They meet Popclaw, and Huey and Mother's Milk go in to plant surveillance technology into the apartment so they can track her and record and all that stuff. This is one of the most bonkers episode, though, because at the same time all this is going on, A-Train is getting ready to run a race that we've been hinting at throughout the last 2 episodes. We haven't been hinting at, but the show's been hinting at. Again, Shockwave or whatever his name is. And A-Train feels he can't beat him, so he takes one of the hits of the Compound V with him, does it when no one's looking, or does it so fast no one else can see it, and runs the race and wins. Then afterwards, they're asking him all these questions, and they're like, what about dating life? Like, what's your dating life like? And he says, I'm single, but, you're free to send in applications. Now, Popclaw, who is his girlfriend, wants A-Train to go to Stillwell and tell her that they want to become officially and public, but A-Train, for whatever reason, is hesitant to do so. Now, Popclaw is referenced to be a recovering addict. She hears A-Train's "I'm single, send in your apps" kind of comment, and she relapses by doing some Compound V. At the same time, her landlord, who seems like a decent human being, comes looking for the rent. She seduces him, and in the midst of sex, she sits on his face and has him eat her ass. Oh god, this showing assholes. She then ejects her claws and pops them into the ground and grinds her cheeks into his face. And she's got some supernatural strength, so as she's in the throes of this Compound V-laden orgasm, she snaps his skull apart with her ass cheeks, killing him instantly. The boys record all of this thanks to Huey's spy cam. They come in and blackmail her. At the same time, Translucent's remains are found by the Deep and Homelander, and they open it up, and you see on the box that the remains are in, coming for you. And Homelander says, we're officially going to war. The other aspect of this episode was that we get to see Starlight being told that she has to wear a skimpy outfit or that she's fired. So she relents. This episode sets the entire dynamic for the show. You get to see the ruthlessness of Billy, because Billy tells Huey, as Popclaw is about to kill the landlord, you can't save him. What are you going to do? You're not a super. You can't get there in 30 seconds. Like, it'll take you 30 seconds to get there, and he'd be dead by then. So then what? It's a casualty. Don't worry about it. And you just see the look on his face. And earlier in that day, Mother's Milk asks him, because they were at the race together, are you what are you willing to do to get revenge? And Huey says, I'm willing to pay whatever toll is necessary. And then after the landlord dies, Mother's Milk reminds him what he just said just hours before, and he's like, you're willing to pay any price. And he kind of just walks away and let them stews in that. Yeah,
because it's alluded to by Mother's Milk. This is why he didn't want to get back in the sea with Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just witnessing this stuff. It's really just being a part of it. And of course, when you be a part of something like that, for a time, shit's gonna hit the fan, and you could just see the light. It's crazy because of how parallel these journeys are being. Like, both of the how Huey viewed heroes and how Starlight viewed being a hero, just that light of that perception is being slow, like, more and more dimmed as these episodes go on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how those journeys kind of parallel, and then of course these two run into each other. But yeah.
So then we go to episode 4, the female of the species. They go and find where the compound V is being made. It's being held in a triad hideout. The boys minus Billy go in, and it should be noted before, in episode 3 was when we find out about Billy and his wife and sister-in-law. That's where all that transpires. We then get the revelation that they're experimenting. It's not really the revelation yet, but we get to the female. Frenchie lets her out. She kills everyone in the triad, and then she disappears. And Frenchie, from just observation alone, is able to put together some things and work their way through. And they kind of come to a conclusion that she's probably at Penn Station. So they go and they find her. Well, it turns out that A-Train is aware that someone knows about the stash. So he's looking for the female as well, because he knows all about her. And he tries to fight her. The boys show up, able to distract them. Then they're able to take the female into custody and tie her up. At the same time, A-Train is pressing his girlfriend for information like, who'd you tell, who'd you tell, who'd you tell? She's saying no one. Eventually he just says, all right, I'm going to have to take you out of the city. It's too dangerous for you right now. So he takes her away, and we'll get to her comeuppance later. We're able to find... Let's see what else. Nope. This was the episode with the plane, correct? Yes. Okay. So the big it's not the most predominant arc about this. This was the discovery and trapping of the female, but the most haunting part of this episode involved a hijacking similar to 9/11. A group of Middle Eastern terrorists take over a plane, and Homelander and Queen Maeve show up and dispatch of the 3 in the seated area with all the passengers. Then they burst down the door to the cockpit where the co-pilot, the pilot now dead, is being held at gunpoint. The terrorist shoots the co-pilot, and Homelander eviscerates the terrorist, but in doing so he destroys the controls. So realizing that the plane is now in basically a free fall sort of situation, it's going to crash, Queen Maeve and Homelander start thinking of all these ideas, and every time Queen Maeve comes with a new idea, basically Homelander says something to the effect like, if I do that, I'll be blamed for the disaster. You know, she says, like, can't you just lift the plane? Can't you hit it from an angle? Can't you lift it? And he's like, everything you're telling me to do will just tear the plane apart. And then she goes, well, what if you just race the civilians to land? And he goes, I'll only make like 6 or 7 trips, and then what? You know, we'll still be blamed for it. We'll still be accused of not being fast enough or good enough. It's best just to let them all die. And Queen Maeve is horrified by this. And the whole scene is punctuated by a little girl who first sees Homelander and Queen Maeve, and she knows that everything is going to be all right. And as Queen Maeve and Homelander are leaving, it's the little girl's reaction that hits you the hardest, because she's losing hope in not just her life, but in the ideals of superheroes in the same instance. And it's Queen Maeve who makes that connection with her, as Homelander basically goes, are you going? You going to stay? You going to stay and die with them? And he even says, you know, don't throw your life away. And she eventually relents and goes with him as the plane descends into the water, explodes, killing everyone. And there's a scene, and it's a real haunting scene because you see it in the trailer, but now it has context. They're floating in the clouds watching the plane go down.
Yeah, it's another one of those elements of really horror, like I was alluding to earlier. And again, Anthony Starr, brilliant. The actor that plays Maeve was great. I mean, just everybody in the scene was great. I know some people was complaining, like, of course they put Middle Easterns as terrorists. I'm like, okay.
Well, they put a white dude as a maniacal sociopath. Like, get the fuck off your high horse, guys.
There's also a Middle Eastern who's technically a hero if we're looking at Frenchie. Well, they're all Kilter, but the hero. In a sense, but yeah, I mean Anthony Starr again, his acting, because when he gets on the plane, he's full hero.
Oh yeah,
and he's reassuring the crowds, the kids, this, that, and the third, and then things start to go left. And even after he kind of shits the controls, and he's listing off stuff that I'm like, yeah, you could do that because Superman did that, and like how many times have we seen some of his best scenes in the animated and in the films? Probably my favorite scene in Superman Returns was him saving the plane. Mm-hmm. And you could tell, even the way he played it, because he played it right, but you could tell behind his eyes, you could tell he could do more than he was saying.
Mm-hmm. He just didn't want
to. Do the stuff. Yeah, he could just did the stuff he's saying that he couldn't do. But then it's coming down to the final hour, and these people just rush them like, what are you going to do? And he's like, back the fuck up, y'all get lasered. And it's like, oh, that's the bumper. And Maeve know this is in him, but to see it the way she's seeing it here, like just further, it's like a horror show for her from every aspect. She can't do anything. The guy that could do something doesn't want to, and you just have this kid. It's just over. And he's like you said, it's like you want to stay here and die with him. And then it's like, how could he do something like this? And of course, it's either in the same episode or the next episode, you maniacal son of a.
The end of this episode is capped off by him giving a speech to the camera crew saying, if we were 5 minutes sooner, we could have saved them. And you know how we would have been 5 minutes sooner? If we had military clearance and we were in position to save them. And he makes this big proclamation for having soups in the military based off of this huge fucking blunder on his part, and Maeve is watching him use the situation to his advantage, and it makes her sick.
It just, because we got to remember, before this, Stillwell told him to save this plane for good favor with the military. But the whole time he's been going back and forth clashing with her. Why are you telling me what to do is me? Nobody's going to be me better than me. I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm not some freaking house. Why am I taking orders from a being I feel like is lesser than me? And the only reason why he didn't outright say that to her is because of their relationship. Mm-hmm. Essentially, that's what he was saying. By the way, I love the way he does his cape anytime he has to sit down. But, yeah, that's just him. But the fact that he was like, look, I can write a better script than this. Let me do it. And she's constantly shooting him down. So anytime she does something, he's like, let me see how I can spin this. And the minute she saw what happened, Stillwell knew what he did. She knew it. She knew that he could have saved them people and he didn't do it, and the fact that he was like, we got to get this fast tracked. There's nothing that says fast track, and we probably need these heroes like a plane of dead innocents. So that was brilliant.
So there's a little minor story arc that we haven't been covering. In episode 3, I think it was, Huey goes on a date with Starlight. Was that episode? No, episode 3 was where they meet at the race.
In the park, yeah.
No, the park was episode 1. The race was episode 3. Where they're like, oh, you're from the park, and she's like, yeah, and then they go and have beer and hot dogs together. Episode 4 was the bowling date, I think.
Okay.
And along the way, a lot of what's been going on is every time he talks to her or he's talking about life or whatever, he starts to see his dead girlfriend. And it starts to really haunt him. And Billy's pushing for this relationship to happen because they can use it. And Billy's like, track her, like put a tracker on her phone, and eventually Huey does. But in episode 5, we bring that up because now in episode 5, she's brought Huey along to the Believe Expo. And oh boy.
I know this divided half of the show's audience.
So basically in this episode, you had gay preachers practicing or talking about abstaining from sex and homosexuality is wrong. You had laser babies destroying Vought security. You had Homelander nearly drowning Huey in a pool, baptizing him. This episode is fucking bonkers, man. Plus, you also get more information about the female. She ends up, Huey and her start to bond, and she basically is let go because Huey gets burned. And because Huey gets burned, he releases the female so she doesn't get caught with him. And the reason Huey gets burned is because A-Train finds or is told by Popclaw what happens. That she's being blackmailed, she was having sex, they found out, and A-Train kills her, putting 12 needles into her arm in an instant, making it look like a stroke or an overdose or something like that. He then finds the tracking footage that they were using to blackmail her, and they are able to find Frenchie's face, so they burn him. So Frenchie's he's done. He has to get out. And they're tracking him. They're looking for him. And Black Noir is scouring the city for him. And Black Noir almost finds him. And when he does, he's about to kill Frenchie. But then the female shows up and fights him. Noir kills her and leaves thinking that the fight's over. She heals and recovers. And Frenchie basically calls her his angel or his miracle. No, that's what it was the miracle. On the flip side of that, they're at a Believe Expo all day. And I believe this is where actually Billy goes and sees his sister. Because there's a point in this episode where he's gone and Mother's Milk goes, where were you? And he's like, I had to take care of some things.
He was like, so that'll be playing none of your effing business or something he said. I was like, why you got to be like that to Mother's Milk? Shoot, I'm not freaking saying the whole name.
Right, it's so weird.
Yeah, but yeah, by the way, is his sister-in-law the news crew girl?
I don't think so.
Okay, but yeah, that scene. I think that's Livewire.
Who plays
From
the sister?
Supergirl?
Who plays the sister?
Yeah.
Let me double check. It might be. Let's see.
Yeah.
Billy's sister. The daughter. Rachel. Let's see. Britt Morgan, American actress.
Yeah, Britt Morgan. She also played, True Blood too. Yeah.
Yep, she played Livewire. She was in Riverdale as Penny Peabody.
Yeah, the a-hole. Yeah, that a-hole. So
True Blood as Debbie Pelt. Look at you, Marcus. Look at you.
Yeah, faces. But they get to this scene. Thanks. But we get to this scene, and this is another one of those things where he got to further kind of stretch their character because he was livid.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm guessing he went to the grave site. Well, no, he was just livid that there was a grave site.
They officially declared her dead and buried her for closure for their mother, for Becky and Becca's mother.
Yeah, and he was livid, and she was like, "Look, man, I got to move on. You're not the only person I love to She was like, you don't even know if they're dead. She was like, whether she is or not, we got to put a closure to this chapter. Like you're still in it. We need to move out of it. And then he was just like, you know what? Screw this. And he went there and took down the grave. And I guess the keeper of the grounds was looking. He was like, hey man, piss off. He was like, I'm not actually grave robbing. There's nothing in there.
That was the line like that really sold him as a character. There's nothing to bury. Oh. So during this episode, Huey uses his relationship with Starlight to get close to Ezekiel to blackmail Ezekiel to find out what's going on. The footage they have though gets destroyed when Huey's baptized, so they can't actually use any of the footage to blackmail Ezekiel. So Huey, thinking on his feet, says, "You touched me," at the superhero club. I'm going to tell everyone. And Ezekiel goes to kill him, but then realizes that he's fucked because he was like, I have evidence, and if you kill me, it goes out, and I'm the only thing that is going to stop you, and blah, blah, blah. So Ezekiel's like, what do you want? And Huey goes, I want to know what's in those crates that you're sending that's supposed to be vaccines. And that's how they find out that the Compound V is being distributed across the world. During this episode, Starlight I use this phrase both ironically and not ironically, but she has a come to Jesus moment where she's seeing Ezekiel talk about premarital sex is a bad thing, as homosexuality is a bad thing, and Starlight's not gay, but she loves people. She doesn't have a problem with it. And she even has this, saying to her mother right before she goes on stage, this place feels different to me. I remember this place differently. And this is where the mother and her have that really terse argument where she goes, this isn't about you, and the mother goes, isn't it? So she goes on stage for her mother, and midway through her little performance, she stops and she goes, I can't do this for you anymore. And she basically says, y'all are fucking up. Stop being dumbasses. Fuck you. I'm out. But it's a lot more poetic than that. And she leaves, and Huey runs up to her, so impressed with her. And he even claps for her when no one else does, which was, that's so me. And he runs up to her afterwards, and he's like, that was the most honest thing I've seen all day. And she's flipping mad at Huey. She's like, how could you use me for those Ezekiel, to get to Ezekiel like that? Like, that's the only reason why you came. I can't believe you. I thought you were better than that. And Huey continuing to show that he is evolving as a more necessary kind of darkness in his soul, lies to her but tells her the truth at the same time. Instead of telling her what exactly they're trying to do, which is find this Compound V, which is being experimented on with children. And if you had told her that, I bet you she would have been like, yeah, we need to stop that shit. I'm super in. Instead, he lies to her and says, my girlfriend died, and I was going to Ezekiel to see if he could provide me with some kind of relief. And she just immediately melts away with the anger, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But he's still seeing the girlfriend over Starlight's shoulder.
Yeah, and it's funny, that girlfriend thing, it's almost like his subconscious being like, stay on mission.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why he kind of always snaps out at Wall, also at the same time serving as a, you cheating on me? It's that whole deal. That kind of deal, like just guilt, but also at the same time his subconscious is almost like the spirit of Billy too, kind of like, stay on mission, you bloody wanker, like that whole deal. But yeah, that's that whole thing. It because that vision got a lot to do with his perception of the mission overall, and that thing, and the great way that he pivoted when he was utterly screwed against Ezekiel. He was like, oh my God, you touched me, it was so good. And Ezekiel just flipped out, and kudos again to Anthony Starr, because the minute he sees him again, he knows something's up.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, how in the blue hell did somebody like you get in here? Like, you was like, Starlight. What, did she get you in? Huh? Did she get you in? And then as he's baptizing him, and he's this guy, because we talked about the pussy intimidation tactics of Bully Ray and but the way he intimidates people is so subtly apparent.
Mm-hmm.
It's great, because he damn near drowned him at the thing, and then there's a scene, and I don't know if we passed it yet or coming up to it, but the scene he had alone in the conference room with the Deep.
Yeah, that was in episode 2, because the Deep finds the plane and mentions to Stillwell that there's scorch marks on the plane. And Homelander goes, "Why would you tell her that?" And the Deep just got Homelander's a fucking sociopath, man.
This guy's intimidation tactics. Because I'm thinking he's gonna either like choke him, lift him up, like toss him across the table. Like I'm thinking he's gonna do something. But sometimes sometimes the presence of something or the implied words, because he does real good with implied verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
In when he talks to people. But that him almost drowning Huey, which was a whole thing. Cause I forgot what he said to him, but it was something to the effect of I don't know or something about a virgin. But he also froze up with Homelander for something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he mentioned his girl or something, but he froze up again. But yeah, him thinking on his feet and him telling Starlight like you said, that half truth really kind of saved his ass. And at the same time, because this is before we found out what the Compound V is actually for, right?
Right. The scene just after his "my girlfriend's dead" scene was when we find what the Compound V is being used for, and they find that it's being dripped into babies. And that's where Billy takes the baby out of the container and uses the heat ray vision to kill all the dudes.
we got this is how close we're going to get to a live action Jack.
Well, the thing is that scene I thought was an homage to the actual scene where Becca gets killed by the baby with the heat vision. Like, this is a baby with the heat vision, and Billy's holding it. It emulates so hard, but he's like, nah, I'll come for you later if I have to. And MM is like, we are in some fuck.
It was so bad because he started off using the heat vision. And there was a point where the baby, like, it wasn't turning on, and he kind of twitched the head a little bit. I was like, you're not supposed to do that. But it's this damn show, man.
So then we go to episode 6, The Innocents. Huey is on a date with Starlight, and he runs into his old friend Anthony, who's basically kind of assumed that he's been dead. At one point in episode 2, I think, after they kill Translucence, he goes home to get clothes. His dad sees him. And Huey destroys his room, ripping out all these superhero posters, and basically tells his dad, I gotta go. So they haven't seen him. His home life hasn't seen him in weeks. And so they're dealing with that situation. The boys are finding out more about the Compound V, disguised as polio vaccines. Ashley, the rep, was fired for what happened at the Holier Than Thou Fest. And at the Holier Than Thou Fest, I forget its actual name, that's where Starlight actually revealed to the entire world that she had been sexually assaulted. To everyone. And now it's public. So Ashley gets fired, and when Starlight, Annie, asks Stillwell, why'd you do it? And she goes, well, because she fucked up your image, and we're going to change things up. And Annie goes, no. I'm going to go back to my old costume. And Stillwell goes, well, then we'll fire you. And Annie goes with the hardest of clapbacks. Yeah, I'm sure stock prices would look great after you fired somebody after they confessed to being sexually assaulted by a Vought employee. And Stillwell just goes, you got some... Like, she doesn't say it, but you can tell, you got some balls, girl. And Annie leaves the room, and at this point, Stillwell realizes that she has to finally deal with the issue in the room, which is the Deep. So she tells the Deep, you're being reassigned to Sandusky, Ohio. And Marcus, let me tell you, so much of this show is bullshit. So much of this show is just over-the-top nonsense. They nailed Sandusky. There's a very famous theme park in Sandusky, Ohio called Cedar Point. It is, quote-unquote, considered America's roller coaster. It has the highest and fastest roller coasters in the United States. It is a very big bastion of pride and not just in Sandusky, but Cleveland and Ohio in general. So the fact, like, every time the Deep meets someone from Sandusky, they go, oh, have you tried Cedar Point yet? That is 100% accurate to anyone visiting Sandusky or Cleveland. They will ask you, oh, you plan on going to Cedar Point? So, fucking kudos to Eric Kripke. And the funny thing was, when Eric Kripke made Supernatural, he brought in the Impala to be the signature show car. But wherever the Impala goes in the United States, it's actually shot in Canada, but whatever, they have Ohio license plates. So I've always thought that to be one of the best things ever with Kripke and Supernatural is that they always are doing a nice homage to Ohio at some point and somewhere. And I love that they did it again with the boys.
Yeah, I'm great that you called that. I also was like, that sounds like the last place they would need a wet hero.
It's right next to Lake Erie. Lake Erie, I think, is the largest of the Great Lakes, I think, or second largest. So it is a big place to explore. But and he even says, the concierge even says, this is Sandusky. We don't have a lot of crime. We're not a shithole like Akron.
Oh yeah, I remember. I was like, oh god, that just, God. Even in this show, LeBron. Hey, what's going on with y'all, LeBron? What's going on with y'all, LeBron? Oh.
So beyond that, we get more relationship building between Huey and Starlight. We also get Billy chastising Huey for falling for Starlight because Billy finds them in the bar together kissing, and he's like, if you don't straighten the fuck up, I'm going to tell her about translucence. And Huey says something to the effect like, not before I tell her first, or something like that. We also find out more about, this episode is really the females episode. We find out her name, it's Kamiko. We find out about her ties to the Shining Light Liberation Army terror group. That was something that she was forced into. We also meet Mesmer and his daughter Cleo, which I thought was a nice homage. Remember Miss Cleo?
Yep.
That's why she was named Cleo. I thought that was hilarious when I found that out. We also find out more about Butcher's wife, as he tells it to Huey. This was more of a revelation episode than anything pertinent happening. Outside of Starlight basically going, nah, you work for me now because you all about that public image. The rest of this episode is about finding out things. And I think this was also the episode where Mesmer betrays the boys and tells Homelander. Thank you. I keep wanting to say Statlander, but she's a pro wrestler. He tells Homelander who's doing this, who's looking for them, and all the pertinent information. And when he finds out that it's Billy Butcher, that is the trigger that kind of sends Homelander down the darkest of paths.
But by the way, this show knew what to do with his budget when it came to Homelander, because every scene, whether it was flight, the heat vision, the super strength, like when he took off, I felt those Man of Steel type vibes.
Mm-hmm. It's truly revolutionary how they were able to incorporate so much of it. So episode 7, the Self-Preservation Society. We have Huey and Annie finally consummating the relationship, and this is where, at least I think, I'm going to rewatch the series. This is where I think Huey stops having visions of his girlfriend, because he's both no longer tormented by the idea of her, and he's also no longer glued to the mission anymore. He sees hope again in Starlight, and that's something that he profoundly needs to keep going in his life. We finally see the Deep in Sandusky. It's hilarious. I think it's alluded to that he does like a show at Cedar Point and meets a young woman, and he brings her back to the apartment or the hotel room that he has. She's all about banging a superhero, but she wants to see the gills because apparently she's heard that he has the gills. So he takes off the vest and she starts rubbing up on them, and he doesn't like that at all, and they're gross as fuck to look at. And she basically gets him on the couch and shoves her fingers into his orifices for his gills as she's rubbing one out. And as she's masturbating and gill banging him, she starts calling him a freak, starts saying that you like that. And the pain that he is in from having his gills molested is keeping him static, like he doesn't know what to do. And that is such a haunting goddamn scene. Because you realize that the pain that he's committed to others is finally coming unto him.
This was so many emotions that I felt ashamed to have. Weird, because she was hot, then it was not.
Yeah.
Then she started rubbing one out, and then she wanted to see the guilt. Because this is a very low self-esteem character.
Mm-hmm.
And not just within the perception of who he is as a hero. Not only amongst the people, but his peers in that regard. But he's also ashamed of those gills.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get it in this scene, and then she doesn't just. But let's be honest, we've crossed every line of the line. She's not just fingering his gills; she's digging her nails, her fingers into his gills, like it's freaking Play-Doh putty. And the sounds, they were moving, like just. You forgot so fast that she was playing with herself. That's how like gruesomely this scene elevated. You forgot so fast that she turned into such a douche, and he damn near had to punch her off of him, which he never actually did because now it's implied that he let her finish. So, but at the same time, like I said, you felt bad, but then your immediately was like, you know what? Eye for eye makes a blind man, but I mean, hell, what you gonna do?
Yeah. So, forgot this little note from episode 6. Billy goes to Raynor with all the evidence they have about the super babies. And Raynor flat out tells him, I'm not going to do anything because I'm afraid of Homelander. And I'm afraid of Vought. But she would be willing to do it as long as Billy was okay with not going after Homelander. That was something that he just could not stomach, so he rejects the offer. So in episode 7, they all get burned. Huey, Butcher, MM, Frenchie, they're all burned. Their identities are out, and they are being hunted by Vought. We find out all about it was Homelander who tells the entire 6 forget about Translucent, who tells the 6 that they're the ones who killed Translucent, that they're extorting Ezekiel, that A-Train. The death of Robin was on them as well, and they just starts doing all of this stuff. And Starlight is accused of being part of the conspiracy, to which Queen Maeve says, no, she's not part of it, she's just a stupid girl. And that was you could see Starlight kind of like, not slumped over, but she was like, she leaned forward in her chair, and she was breathing hard, and her chest was heaving, and you could tell that this was just like, holy shit. And throughout the entire episode, Huey's trying to call her because they're trying to get all of their loved ones into one location to protect them. And either he's trying to call her to invite her to join them, or he's calling to make sure she's okay.
He just ran down every facet of the plan because they did this thing where he went back, before he called this meeting, he went back and surveyed all this information himself. Because, like I said, this guy is as methodical as he is maniacal. So he surveys all this information, and the last piece of the puzzle, and this was intentional by Billy, he flashed back to the race where Billy stared a hole into him from the stands. He remembered it, and then it was like everything came together because he did this smirk. And he ran down everything at the meeting, and you could just feel the intimidation factor he had over everybody in that room.
Yep.
Maeve, even when A-Train finally put it all together, it's still like, oh crap, he's gonna get, because it's really Homelander that made him kill his girlfriend.
Yeah, it was. It literally was. Homelander essentially tells A-Train, she's a liability.
Yeah.
So he kills her because that's what Homelander told him to.
And again, it's that intimidation factor. I thought he was going to do something to him when they had a little one-on-one, because they do this great thing. All the villains have this thing, and Chad knows. They'll do this thing where you enter the room and the villain's just standing there in front of the window with like his arms behind his back.
Why would Chad know that?
He's mastered it.
You said something there, Marcus.
In the hall of the Space Monkey space station.
Oh God, that's a great name.
That's coming in the future, by the way.
We're gonna build it.
We're gonna freaking build it. But yeah, and he just tells him, he was like, look, it was an honor mistake. You're a kid, you're young, you're dumb. And he was like, but you're family, and I love you. And he hugged him. He was like, no matter what happens, I'll always be watching over you. And that wasn't so much of an endearing thing. It was like,
that wasn't like a familial thing. Yeah. That was a threat.
Yeah, that was a threat. Again, his freaking verbiage is on point. He walked away like, Jesus, I just dodged a bullet. And everybody in this show, from Stillwell to the freaking officer that Billy Butcher was negotiating with. They're more scared of Homelander than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
He knows it. So this is why he can operate under this ultimate veil of assholery that he does. But yeah, at this meeting, it's like, again, and we got this earlier in the episodes that we find out that him and Maeve used to date because another gruesome scene they did, him and Maeve went on his mission to stop this gang violence or whatever, and he stuck his hand in this dude's chest, and it was supposed to be her get.
Yeah, that was earlier in the season. There was a like a shootout with the cops.
Yeah,
and they go in and they're having that discussion about how they used to date, and he just rips out the dude's chest. But in this episode, I think was when they did the. Was this the one where they go to the Middle East to help out the military? Or is that the next episode?
That might have been the next episode, but yeah, between that we find out that they're dating, and again, intimidation factor for her. She already knows
used to be dating. Used to be dating.
Yeah, used to be dating and discuss about it, but he drops the line on her, and I think it's when they had that race. Yeah, because they had that conversation when they was going to break that thing up that you have to come to this race. It's mandatory. And he tells her, he was like, I don't know what I would do if I found out that you had somebody else. I just can't see you loving anybody else other than me. And he just walks away. And it's like, he has everybody in this universe pumped. And it's insane. And of course we get other stuff with her girlfriend and whatnot. But I don't know if it was this episode or episode prior to this, because you said you talked about the moment where Huey kind of hopped off the train, if you will. When he took Huey to that hero victims meeting, and dude was like, I was fucking this ice chick, and I felt so lucky, but she went full Sub-Zero on me while she was riding me.
1,000 degrees below zero.
Jesus Christ.
It snapped off.
Oh my God. I'm like, first of all, how are you moving? Why are you moving? Why do you still seem to have some type of like inkling of romance towards this chick instead of you being the black Billy Butcher at this point? And Billy just, like, I can't even say what he said verbatim because I don't remember, but he runs.
It's very
down,
simple. I remember distinctly. He goes, "Why aren't you getting mad? Get mad!" Like, Billy is like, he is a preacher looking for his flock, but he was preaching to the wrong choir on that day.
Exactly. He just went off, and then he just storms out, and then he was like, "I'm sorry." He's like he's dealing with a lot, and it's just at that point it's off the rails. It's by any means necessary, because like you're right, he backed off that entire deal. Like, he had his team just set up good money. A base, operations, all that, and
government support, everything,
and he couldn't get it back. And then we're gonna get to the episode. I'm gonna let you get to it. MM has to talk him off a ledge.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of what episode 7 is the revelations for everyone. Kimiko starts to be able to communicate better. They also find out that what was it? I'm reading through the synopsis real fast just to get back to it. They find out that A-Train has kidnapped Huey's father. So Huey goes with a vial of Compound V to bargain. So A-Train lets the father go, but he has Huey dead to rights. And they're talking. And A-Train's like, "You're really fucking stupid for not coming with some backup." And then as A-Train is finally goaded into killing Huey, essentially, the female comes out of nowhere and beats the shit out of him. And breaks his leg, pops the bone out, and Huey looks down and goes, "Yeah, it would have been really fucking stupid not to come without backup, huh?" And they just walk off. I'm like, "Oh, that was cool. That was fun. I liked that scene. That scene was great."
Great. Even greater scene to just show just how much this Compound V has affected him. He had Huey dead to rights.
Mm-hmm. And instead, he gave it all up for it.
And the minute he pulled out that Compound V, he started twitching like a crackhead.
Yep. We also find Butcher meeting up with Mesmer. Mesmer tries to keep Butcher from killing him, and even sees why he's so about being Butcher at killing Homelander. And he tries to say something about his wife or Homelander or something, and without even wanting to listen, he then takes Mesmer's head and smashes it into the sink so many times that it literally reduces his face flat as Mesmer drops to the ground dead.
And again, this is me digging, like I usually do. But in my mind, I'm like, because the way he reacted, like he saw the rape that he always thought happened. So in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, did he just see like the visceral hatred that he saw, or can he just like see memories? Because in my mind, like the only thing he's ever seen was his wife on tape, post what allegedly happened. So I'm like,
I'm glad you said that.
Had this sitting on his mind for so long, he's concocted a scenario how he envisioned it going out, how he envisioned it happening, and that's what Mesmer saw. Because if he just saw, the footage that he saw, he's not that shocked or appalled. But he looked at this dude's face like he literally saw the rape. And he was like, "Oh God, that's why you're so maniacal." And then of course he bashes his freaking face in.
We also get Homelander meeting Dr. Vogelbaum, who tells him all about his lineage. He was a baby that they injected Compound V into. They took him away from his birth parents, and they raised him in an isolated area as basically, a test dummy to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And this is where, greatest failure, when you take a puppy away from a mother, it becomes feral, all that stuff. Butcher, though, after talking to MM, basically has a revelation. Like, MM is like, you're my family. I hope to God you didn't turn down this deal for some type of petty bullshit revenge arc, man. Come on. And being that Butcher and MM are legitimate best friends, he relents and calls Raynor. And they set up everything. And Raynor arrests or drags in Stillwell and basically says, "We got you. Vought's going to pay, blah, blah, blah." And then the most destructive, horrifying moment in TV history happens as she gets pulled away. And Raynor meets the rest of her team as they watch a bunch of U.S. soldiers, invade a terrorist compound looking for the people who instigated the plane. And as they do, they find someone who was shot and stands back up and then essentially nukes himself, destroying the building. Walks out, has Nakib on his chest, which is something like Arabic for hero or something. I forget what they said. And that's like the first true outlier of a super heel, a super villain, a super terrorist. And then basically the deal is then resolved to everything they had on Vought, on Stillwell, on all of them is gone because now they need Vought to combat super terrorism. Also at the end of the episode, Annie confronts Huey finally outside of a church because Huey figures out where she would be. Right? No, in Central Park. Sorry, the church thing is in episode 8. So they meet up in Central Park, and Annie wants to turn him into the police. And Huey's like, "If you do this, they'll kill me. You don't work for the good guys." And as he's trying to negotiate with Annie, and you think it's about to work, all of a sudden she gets beanbagged in the chest by a .50 caliber sniper rifle, and then beanbagged again. And Billy's like, "I told you, let's go." And they both leave with her clutching her chest. And I was like, "Dad, this fucking episode, man. This fucking episode." But it would only get worse. So, episode 8, Marcus. You found me. Oh, boy. So, we find out everything about Compound V, but the Pentagon basically tells everyone that we're going to classify this. And now the boys are going to be wanted for Translucent's death as part of the deal that Vought made to manufacture military soldiers with the Compound V ingredient. So now they're on the run from not just Vought, but the U.S. as well. Leading to all members of the Boys 6 for Billy getting captured. But we'll get there. Annie also then has a confrontation with her mother. And it's revealed, Huey tells her in the episode prior, and Annie asks her mother if it's true, "Did you let Vought experiment me on as a baby?" And her mother says yes. And that's where Annie kind of realizes, did Dad leave because he couldn't lie to me anymore? And she storms out of the house all set to be angry, and she had every right to be. We also get A-Train recovering from the female's attack by pulling a train because, guess what? He's back on the stuff. He was also racially profiled, too, which was a very interesting moment because it goes quickly from the security guard being the villain to A-Train losing his shit and going back to his dark side. What do you think of that scene? Because that scene was very pivotal in his development in this episode.
I loved it. I thought that was a great thing that he's just the personal arc of the guy, and still, even as a world-renowned hero, you still just a black dude that's subject to unfortunate, regularly racial profiling. And the other part of that is that really happens a lot to celebrities, black celebrities, because what happens is they'll say there's somebody and they're like, yeah, and I'm freaking Jay-Z. And then somebody be like, no, dude, that's such and such from ESPN. Oh, shit, my bad. And then they just walk off like that. And it's like, oh, because I'm such and such from ESPN. Oh, now I'm not the stealing black bastard that you was following around the store for however long. Or, you know, if a guy pulls somebody over and is like, oh, that's such and such from NerdCorp. It's like, I'm sorry, sir. Oh, yeah. Oh, so now you know I'm from NerdCorp. Now all of a sudden I clearly can afford this car. That whole deal. Yeah. And that happens all the time. Whether it be black or celebrity. So the fact that it was both, it was just a perfect encapsulation. And the fact that he lost his crap, in the midst of him, not being the guy that, the only thing that really gave him confidence in himself was just being this A-Train guy. And you can't even run now, and you're getting racially profiled. It was just a perfect cataclysm moment.
If one of us gets arrested from this website, it's going to be me, and it's going to be hilarious. How's that coconut cream pie, motherfucker? You just see this little 5'6" dude, his feet's dangling as the giant 6'4" cop's taking him away. I'll fucking eat your face. Get thrown in the back of the car.
Just my luck is the one time I visit Cleveland and me and Chad in the car, and then I'm the one that has to put my hands over because Chad's the white guy. He gets to argue with the cop and curse him out with no gun drawn on him. Like I'm just on the ground. Like I can't believe.
You get out of the car yourself, put your hands behind your head, and lay on the ground. I'm just gonna let you two do your thing. I ain't doing shit.
Yeah, Chad's damn near in Jimmy Uso mode. But I'm on the ground saying every prayer I know. Oh, God. Oh.
So, also in this episode, we get the big revelation about this entire series. So, throughout this entirety of the season, we are thinking that Stillwell is pulling all of these dark, depraved ideas.
Yeah.
But then we find out that literally everything becomes crystallized in this episode because Homelander admits that everything that has gone wrong in this world is because of him. He directed the terrorists at the plane. He didn't save the plane because he needed it to go down. He gave the terrorists the Compound V to create super terrorists to protect the company and by enlarge himself. He was the one working with the Yakuza to distribute the Compound V. He was the one who was using it on babies. It was all him. He wasn't doing it on the babies. He was doing it on the adults. He was doing it on Kamiko. All of these terrible things outside of the baby infusions were done by Homelander. And that revelation, holy shit. Now, I'm not entirely sure why Stillwell then sleeps with him. I don't know if it's because she's so afraid that she needs to throw him off the scent, or if she's legitimately in love or turned down by him, or I don't know what. But they fuck.
No, it's true fear, and she realizes just how much control she has never had in this scenario. And fucking him and in that whole situation is the only bit of control she ever gets to have over him. It's the only time she can kind of veer him or manipulate him in any way. And she got him. Because it's like, no matter what happens, I can't be on this guy's bad side.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna whip his sex on him. I'm gonna mommy him, nurse him, whatever it is that we do to get him kind of in line, because she had him eating out of the palm of her hand on that couch until she didn't have her story straight.
Yep. So Vogelbaum tells, God damn it, I keep wanting to say Statlander. Homelander, thank you.
Yeah.
Tells Homelander that the baby that he conceived with his sexual encounter with Becca Butcher resulted in a pregnancy, and the pregnancy ended up killing both the mother and the baby because the baby clawed its way out of the mother and then drowned on her blood, killing them both. Then Stillwell says that it was a miscarriage that killed them both. Well, that's rather interesting there. Close, but not close enough. Also in this episode, Huey is able to convince Starlight that he's not a bad guy. He goes to her at the church. They have a conversation. She basically says, I never want to see you again. Then he leaves, and you know when someone does this, they don't actually want you to leave. As he's leaving, she even says, why did you come looking for me? Or something to that effect. As he's already walking away. And it's there Huey knows that there's something he can still connect to her somehow. So they talk. He then goes and gets kidnapped because Butcher points out that when the rest of his crew got picked up earlier in the episode, that it was always because there's a black van. And they even alluded to it in episode 2 or episode 3. I think it was episode 3. When they were in a moving van, they're like, a moving van. And Butcher goes, what do you want? Like a black van with what was it? Like a dry cleaning van. And then you see a black dry cleaning van outside of the motel where they were staying. Yeah. So Huey goes and gets kidnapped. And he puts his retainer into his mouth and locks it in. So when they search him, they can't get anything. And he's able to rip it out of his mouth thanks to a well-placed punch by MM. And Frenchie's able to unlock the door. So they get out, find where Kamiko's being held, and she's being sedated. So as they're about to break her out, Frenchie gets shot, and they then have to return fire. And Huey trying to shoot an M4 was the funniest fucking thing in this show. I'm sorry.
They're reload. How do I reload? Give it here.
During this, MM gets Kamiko out, but they get surrounded. And this is where Starlight returns and saves the day and blinds everyone and basically helps the boys escape. As they're leaving, they get cordoned off by A-Train, and Starlight tells Huey, go, I got this. And Huey's like, no, this one's mine. So he locks the rest of the boys out, and they take off, and Huey and Starlight take on A-Train. A-Train's at optimal moving speed, but not at perfect moving speed. So he's still got some weaknesses, and the blinding light of Starlight is taking its toll. Huey and A-Train finally collide, and A-Train says, he's like, you killed my girlfriend, And he was like, I didn't. And A-Train goes, I know, I did. And it was there where he has a heart attack and drops to the ground because of all the Compound V he's been taking. In that moment, he could have ran and left, but instead Huey drops to his knees and starts applying CPR, and that's when Starlight realizes who Huey really is.
This is the guy I always thought he was.
Mm-hmm. And in that moment, just like at the Holy Fest, she lets all of her anger go, and she drops down, does the whole, with the eyes, the I love you, but I can't say it. Yeah, it's just too weird.
Yeah.
But she goes, go, I've got this. And Huey listens to her and takes off.
And I think even a little before that, when you said he told the other guys to go, and she's like, get out of here. He was like, no, I'm not leaving you.
Mm-hmm.
That whole deal. They did great showing the speed versus her power effects in this.
Yeah, this was the best fight in the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, this was phenomenal. And even before this, that warehouse scene, Homelander's warehouse scene. Oof. That's how you do some real horror stuff. They literally just walk in like he walked in there like freaking your boy from Street Fighter.
Yeah, like M. Bison. He strolled right in like M. Bison.
Strolled around and I-beamed people to death, and then when the guy was running, he just caught him from distance. Outside. That's just so damn good. But Yeah, with this last part, and before this, the reason why Huey comes back, he pleads with Butcher.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, what happened to the crew? They got captured. Okay, well, obviously the first thing we're gonna do is go get them, right? The freak are you talking about? No, we got to. No, they took an L so we could get a win. We got to go finish this. He's like, what are you? What are you talking? What is the point of all this if we don't have the crew? If we're not doing this with the crew, like, what is the point of all this? Like, you don't get it. Everything I have done is leading up to this point. This is now or never. This is crunch time. This is the fourth quarter. We got 3 seconds left. We got to go. And this is the ultimate divide because this is where Huey fully steps back into that guy that was on that curb with his girl before all this crap went down.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Look, man, like I get it. I get what you want to do, but you've been using me this whole damn time. Like you lit me like a match and threw me like that woman that we went and visited lit you and threw you. You lit a match and just threw it out into the world. And every place you went, you've burned. And you tried to do the same to me, and you're about to go and now you're burning your so-called family, your friends. I'm not doing that. Like, go off and to your suicide mission. I'm going back for my friends." And that kind of completes his arc because before that, like I said, and this is going back to the lamplighter, the woman that
Well, yeah.
recruited.
Well, let's get to that
Yeah.
because that's something that we did skip over real fast. Mallory is the woman
Yeah.
that was had her grandchildren killed by a lamplighter. Earlier in the episode, her and Huey go and visit her, and he basically says, "You owe me," and she goes, "You let my grandchildren die. Go fuck yourself." And it's kind of alluded to earlier in the season that Frenchie fucked up somehow. Like, he trusted someone, he bought the remorse story or something like that, and he let them go, and that person was Lamplighter, allegedly, and Lamplighter ended up killing Mallory's grandchildren, apparently on his way out to escape.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of the tension within the team resides. So basically, Mallory says, "I owe you one because I brought you in." She gave him information about Stillwell and Homelanders. Like, if you want to get to Homelander, you got to get to Stillwell. And then she tells Huey basically, like, get out while you can. And that brings us back to overtime. Like, this is the kick. This is the drive. This is every sports cliche rolled into one. So Butcher takes Stillwell hostage. And basically, give me what you know about, Homelander, tell me everything you know. And as he's berating her and threatening her, all of a sudden you see Homelander stroll out from the back carrying Stillwell's baby. And he puts the baby in a crib, and they start to have a conversation. And then it all comes... Like, we already knew all of the dastardly deeds that have been placed into this world. But one thing that has been hinted at the entire season, whenever Homelander brought up Becca Butcher, they even had a few flashbacks. It may not have been forced upon her. And that starts to become a real idea in this final 5 minutes. Because as they're conversing, and Homelander's talking about Becky and the baby, and Billy's holding the dead man's switch, and he goes over to Stillwell and goes, you almost got your story straight. But when I was torturing him, being the other professor, he let loose the real truth, and he leaned in and whispered in her ear that he knew what was true about the entire situation, and he leaned back, and she starts crying, I'm so sorry, and that's when he nukes her face with his eyes. And then he turns around at Billy and basically says, so what are we going to do? And Billy just, I think they had like a little banter back and forth, but then Billy lets go of the switch, the house explodes. And then Billy opens his eyes, looks up and sees Homelander. And he's in the most condescending tone. He goes, been sleeping for a long time. Hey there, champ. And Homelander gets up, sees that he's now on the front lawn of someone's house. There's no baby in sight. So Stillwell and her baby are a Kaputski. And Homelander says something to the effect like, you're going to want to watch this. And as he's standing there, this young child, this boy runs out. Oh my God, you're Homelander. And behind him, the long-thought-dead wife of Billy Butcher, Becca Butcher, smiling as she sees Homelander, and then going cold when she sees Billy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
This season finale was a goddamn heart attack.
It's so tragic because you go back to that conversation and you just realize how brilliantly evil this guy is. And somebody I forgot what somebody kind of referenced Homelander as. They called him like a controlled maniac, a controlled something. But the way he walked into that, like when you look at how he planned everything out, and like the only reason why he even came there, it wasn't because he got messaged or anything, or he absolutely knew she was in danger. It's because she was literally his last piece of business to deal with of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy being there was a
coincidence,
random convenience with how all this tied back in. Because the second he walks in, she's dead. There's no other alternative for that. She's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing Billy can do. I mean, she said it early in the season. Like even when and I love this conversation she had with that guy that was the attorney general or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept mocking her about her heroes. He's like, we're never gonna let your freaking test tube baby heroes into the thing. And she was like, what's y'all top thing? And this was another great thing that dropped a line about our real life society. She was like, what's y'all greatest asset? And he named off some type of missile. It was like, yes, of course, it's our missiles. It's like the last real thing that America actually makes. I was like, oh, ain't that the truth? But she said like they've thrown everything at him, nukes, you name it, nothing's worked. They can't stop him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on with this situation, and he comes in there, and the banter you say that he had back and forth, he literally mocks him. He was like, so you're the husband of the girl that I banged, huh? Like, yeah, you look, man, you know. And this is full Highlander, Homelander mode, Highlander. They're like, yeah, you know, the celebrity thing, you know, she couldn't help herself, banged her, you know, she orgasmed 3 times. And I'm just going, and I'm literally sitting in front of my computer with the chair, and I roll back because I'm like, oh my God. It wasn't rape, was it? And I'm going, because I'm sitting back there like, of everything that's gone down, of everything we've seen from this guy, what in the freak does he have to lie to Billy Butcher about?
Mm-hmm.
And you just thinking, oh, and he drops the line of, he's like, wait a minute. You've done all of this planning, this plotting, this revenge storyline, off your feelings. You never had factual proof that I raped your wife, and then you just start flashback into everything that we've seen in the show. Him sitting down with Mallory in front of the computer, watching her come out of the room disheveled, never seeing anything else.
Yep.
Watching her on that bench, sad and depressed, and walking away, nothing else.
Well,
you realize that
there is a nugget that we need to address. The wife, Becca, does tell Billy she was raped. But this was, he even says this is like 3 days before she disappeared.
Yeah.
Because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And she wanted to keep the baby. So, we get Mallory showing it. We have Becca, claiming it. But at no point do we know this is true. In fact, when you see Becca look at Homelander, she's smiling. It's only when she sees Billy when the cold creeps into her face. I believe, and there's even another scene where Becky meets Homelander, and Homelander goes, "Hey, you're running my Twitter account. You're doing great work. We should meet up one day and talk about ways to expand on this." And she's just smiling like, "Oh my God, yes." And there's another scene that's inconsequential, but has so much more to him. Remember when there's that one girl that everyone was talking to get information from? She's like a computer tech for the company.
Yeah.
And Homelander strolled up to her, and she was all goo goo gaga. Oh my God, you're Homelander. And he goes, John's fine. There's a magnetism that women have for him. It's probably why Queen Maeve fell for him. It's probably why Becky fell for him. It's probably how he gets a lot of women to sleep with him. He doesn't strike me as someone who needs to rape anyone.
I'm so glad you said that. That's how it came off to me, because when he first found out about the accusation that he raped her, you could see the kind of discontentment in his face, like, what?
Mm-hmm. Because it's so beneath
and then he
him.
went, yeah, exact. Thank you. That's what he's that narcissistic. Raping somebody is beneath him. Like, I'm Homelander. Are you kidding me? I'm freaking Homelander. Like, and just like I said, the way he looked at Billy, and he was like, you really did all this stuff off of a guess, really, a estimation, if you will. You really didn't come here with any proof. And you just see the look in Billy's eyes like, I gotta die on this hill now. I got to.
Mm-hmm.
I done tossed away my friends. I've literally lived for nothing but revenge my whole life. From the moment I saw that footage and she told me that, my life has been dedicated at one thing, causing you pain. And then he just blows everything to hell. And that him waking up on that lawn and the look, and then you see freaking Homelander bonding with this kid whose eyes is also lighting up, so that's a whole nother thing. And you know this is going to peel back so many layers on the onion that is Homelander now, because now he actually has something to give a F about that's going to care back.
Yep.
Like I said, without anything, about any selfish reasoning behind it, because I would assume, I mean, hell, well, the black guy's going to take back over now because Stillwell is gone.
The black guy was already taking over. Stillwell worked for him. He's going to be he's going to have more of a hand in things now.
Yeah. But now it's basically Homelander's running the show, because the only person that knew about everything is dead.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got control. He's basically got all control of Vault. He's controlling the narrative of the villain hero world now.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's got this kid. And now Billy realizes that for all these years he's been tormenting and torturing everything. It's been for nothing. Like, I cannot wait to hear this conversation between the two of them, because I feel like it's going to come down to, I had a whole moment and it turned into something else. And I'm sorry.
I'm curious, because now this sets up Becky as a possible Becca. It sets Becca up as a possible antagonist for Billy. Because let's say, because right now both theories, the rape theory and the consensual sex theory, are both still on the table. They're on the table until they're not. Let's say that this is the consensual sex theory. Now all of a sudden it's Mallory lied to him. Becca ran from him, cheated on him, and basically made Billy spend the next 8 years living in vengeance. He's not the kind of person that strikes to me as someone who can let things go. So who do you think he's going to direct that anger at now?
It's going to be so pivotal what they do with the Homeland and this kid next season, and Billy's whole thing, because, like I said, his world is shattered now. His whole freaking world. That's probably why, like, the relationship between him and that DA or whatever she was didn't work out, because, like I said, he's been fixated on the point for 8 years. Everything else has kind of been in the passenger seat of what he actually cares about. So now, like I said, he sent his protege, basically gave his protege the finger, sent his friends up shit's creek without a paddle. He's lost everything, and now he's lost his one reason for continuing in life.
Yep.
And now, the one guy who he aimed all this anger at really is somebody he owes a favor to, because he saved his life. But to be fair, in a true Homelander fashion, he saved his life to shove all this down his throat.
Oh yeah, he saved his life to spite him.
Yeah, he saved his life to shove all this down his throat. But it's, oh man, the way I hope we don't get into like a Season 2 slump. Like, I hope they Cobra Kai it.
Yep, increase
some
it.
kind of way.
Go to 11.
Go to 11, because this, oh my god, because like you said, I didn't even, and because we both got to go back and watch it. Cause you're right. Her face was one way when Homelander. It was like an old crap. Oh, the Homelander type of surprise. But when she saw Billy, it was like, oh shit. Oh, this is awkward. That whole deal. So, oh man, this season is yeesh. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, man. It was just a roller coaster of emotions that I didn't even know I had, know I wanted. Just a whole deal.
So I'm going to come up with some kind of like rating scale like we do for GameCorp. I want to start doing a track listing of NerdCorp approved shows and movies.
Yeah.
We'll go into the actual like we're going to have to write some things down because we're going to have to move your YouTube videos to next week because we're already pushing 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I also want to do an official grading of this next week as well.
Yeah.
So make some mental notes, write some things down, save things, because that way we can do this. We are going to talk about Rango, though, because I don't want to save this for next week because we are starting a whole new month of movie reviews next week. Yeah. So Rango is a story about a young chameleon that gets bounced out of a car, basically. Played by Johnny Depp. It's a Western flick made by Nickelodeon in animation, and it's one of the more trippier films in terms of its design I've seen in some time. The little mole rat girl, whatever she is, always freaks me out when she talks because she's always looking down and saying the most morbid things. This movie, though, is very charming. I understand why you picked this because I haven't seen this in a while. This is from 8 years ago. What about this film struck with you that made you think of it when we were talking about doing a modern Western movie month?
Well, because I mean, like I said, the movie itself is charming, but it did give it its Western type of feel. And of course, I immediately thought about the like the evil snake with the hat on it.
Wasn't he like a rattlesnake?
Yeah, he was a rattlesnake, man. He was just that ravenous type of outlaw character. That like just that whole thing back and forth between him and everybody was great. But just that Western time vibe, like. Going to this town that's very contained and cut off, but very much having like a legitimate problem that ends up because it's also a mystery. It's like a Western mystery slash like animal midlife crisis type of thing going on with it because like this is like self discovery for this gecko, this chameleon and everything, and him basically how his naive, dumbfounded, like just kooky ways awakens this town and encourages them to stand up and fight and all that and regain their town and just had a lot of early charm to it because if you don't latch on to what like this chameleon in the beginning because they do this whole little thing where he's isolated out in the desert and if you don't latch on to any of that, you're probably not gonna stick on for the rest of it.
No.
So again, Johnny Depp goes to some different lengths in his acting too well to kind of bring out this character. And I thought it, like I said, following that character was charming. The mole rat girl was, I'm just not a huge fan of rats. So like you said, it's awkward in the way they did it. But the rattlesnake, the townspeople, the mystery that got uncovered, then the final showdown, all that stuff it kind of just works. This is one of those movies that you don't really expect to like as much as you do by the time you get done with it.
So the story, the mystery that you alluded to was about the water in the town of, I think it's called the Dirt.
Yeah.
Being, it disappeared. They don't know where it is. They don't know why things dried up and things are going bad. Well, it all kind of comes out as a big whodunit where we all think Rattlesnake Jake, the big bad, the villain of the movie, is the villain, but it turns out he's just trying to get by just like everyone else. Now, he's kind of an asshole, yeah. But it is revealed that the mayor of Dirt, Tortoise John, love these names, was the one who had kind of put the water, I guess, like behind like a retaining wall, I guess, and hid the crank and made sure that no one knew about it and blamed everyone else. And when it was revealed, I love the ending because like Bill Nighy plays the, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. He's the dad or the stepdad from Shaun of the Dead. he takes John out into the desert to kill him and eat him. That was great. I loved it. It's really a typical standalone kind of movie in regards to like how they do the westerns. You know, all the cliches are there. All like Timothy Olyphant plays the Spirit of the West, who basically is just, you know, he's every archetype in cowboy history, and Rango identifies him as a man with no name, which is a callback to Clint Eastwood's work when he was doing westerns. So it's really kind of interesting the way they kind of modernized it with a twist for children, because it's, I think, PG. Although it does kind of have it's not so much inappropriate for a kid to watch in terms of its content, but it's not exactly made for kids, which I think is why it resonated with a lot of kids from that era, because it wasn't toned down, it wasn't dumbed down. It was a very adult film, just with minimal adult themes, with more of a unique scope to it. And I think the animal, what's the term when you make human characteristics into an animal? What is that called? I can't remember. Anthropomorphic. I think the anthropomorphic characters gave it a wholesome charm that really lended itself to a broader audience. The character designs are wacky, but I think they work because the story is supposed to be wacky. I mean, you're following a chameleon, for Christ's sakes. How is that not funny? A chameleon in a Hawaiian shirt, too, by the way. It's a radical movie in a lot of ways. Mark, is there any parts about this film that really stood out to you in terms of scenes or quotes or anything like that?
It's funny because I watched this earlier in the week, but it's hard. Just probably some of the dialogue between the chameleon and the girl, because again, this was kind of him, because he ended up being like a reluctant hero. He kind of fell into it, type of kind of how like we got from like the Bug's Life and Ants and stuff like that. Kind of harken back to that stuff, but probably just him like not knowing like a lot of his potential and saying stuff that ended up leading to clues about the water and stuff, and seeing him kind of coming to his own. But not, I don't know if a specific scene. Like, probably a lot of stuff with Rattlesnake Jake, because he had to keep up a lot of appearances and stuff. And then, of course, I mean, the intimidation factor is that he's a freaking rattlesnake.
Yep.
But yeah, just that, and of course the corrupt mayor and those scenes and his whole little den and just that whole type of vibe. But nothing specific. What about you?
For me, it was Isla Fisher. I just love her. She's such a badass in this movie, and her character design is so damn unique. It's not as crazy as Priscilla, who's the little like rat girl thing, played by Abigail Breslin, but it's up there. You know, these character designs they're almost haunting to look at, but then you kind of get used to their charm, and you almost really become inundated with how unique they are. And I think there's a lot of charm in each one of these characters. Like the mole girl, played by Abigail Breslin, I forget her name, has like a big giant black hat, and it looks like she almost has like a Hasidic Jew. What's the word I'm looking for? Hair twirled up, rolls. No, that's not right. Ponytail. That's not right either. She's got these curls that come down from the back behind the hat, and it almost kind of embodies like an 1880s, 1860s schoolgirl look with how she braided her hair. But it's just the unique charm of each one of these little characters is what gives this film its particular flavor. I would definitely recommend this film for anyone who's into westerns. I would probably give it a B+. What about you?
Yeah, same here, B+. It's a great all around film. Like I said, the characters, the western vibe, just a lot of just the whole turnout of it. I thought it was really good. And probably one of those films that don't get talked about enough.
I agree, and the casting for it is fantastic. You had Johnny Depp, Isla Fisher, Abigail Breslin, Ned Beatty, Alfred Molina, Bill Nye, Harry Dean Stanton, who I'm not exactly sure who that is, although I should probably know. Oh, he's I know who he is. Never mind. Ray Winstone, Timothy Olyphant, Stephen Root, Mayo Flanagan, Alana Ubek. Okay, so not everyone I know. Ian Abercrombie, Gil Birmingham, James Ward Burke, Claudia Black, Blake Clark. So, there's some names that you might know, and there's some voices you're going to recognize. So I would recommend it to anyone who enjoys westerns and even animated films. So That's all we got, though, for you tonight. Everything else we'll cover tomorrow. Not tomorrow, on Thursday next week. Next week, we are going to be reviewing the final 3 episodes of iZombie. That's the big hook for next week. We're going to talk about the series finale, which aired tonight. We're going to talk about our favorite characters, our favorite moments in the series, yada, yada, yada. Yes.
Yeah, Young Justice, wrapping that up.
Well, we're going to save Young Justice for, I think, the season finale as well. I think that way we can hit these when they're pertinent and relevant.
Gotcha.
So, like, the season finale of Young Justice will be its own episode as well.
Gotcha.
So that next week, though, it's going to be the finale of iZombie. We're going to talk about Marcus's new favorite YouTube thing. We're going to start our movie month, which is summer movie month. You got to send me your list so I can get your 2 picks. So I can get the add up the thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
We're also going to be doing, what was the other thing I mentioned for next week? iZombie, Marcus's movies, summer movie month. I guess that's it. We're also going to be starting our official ComicCorp approved show and movie list. Oh, our rating, our rating for the boys. That's right. We're going to break it down in 5 categories and grade them. I assume they're going to be all 5s, which is a perfect. So we'll see. With all that being said, though, Marcus, you can find us on Twitter at NERDCORP, on Instagram at Real Nerdcorp. We're on YouTube.com/Nerdcorp, Twitch.tv/Real Nerdcorp. We're on Podbean at realnerdcorp.podbean.com, unless you download us for your mobile device, and you got to download the app as well. And you can find us on the Podbean app by searching Real Nerdcorp. We're also on iTunes under the podcast section of the iTunes Store under Nerdcorp, NERDCORP. We're on our personals at Paradox Kid for Marcus. That's PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find me on my own personal Twitter accounts as well at Chad Nerdcorp, CHAD-NERDCORP, as well as on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut, CHADSPHOTOHUT. Twitter, once again, is NERDCORP, and our Instagram is Real Nerdcorp. Our woman crush for the week was someone. Can't even remember who now.
Was it Kira Hogan?
No, it wasn't Kira. We already did Kira earlier in the year. Let me double check. I'm gonna just go to Instagram real fast. It was loading. Load faster, you bitch. It was Rockstar Spud's wife, Renee Michelle. And our wrestler of the week is Rango.
Yeah, gotcha.
So there you go. All right, then. With all that being said, we're done for the night. We're sorry for the long show, but it needed to be done. Marcus, with all that being said, unless you have anything else you want to add, take us home.
No. Good night, me.